There we go. It's officially draft day, but more importantly, 40th birthday for Jeff over here. And I'm excited to see where our mock drafts differ and just where things go, because I'm sure both of us will be largely wrong in a lot of ways, as every mock draft is. But I know you've got a lot of contacts. You've got a little bit of intel here and there. Some you'll share, some we'll see what we get. But this is going to be a lot of fun where both of us can go through this, can talk about all of the picks, where we're surprised, where maybe this was something that we thought might go exactly how it does go. And I know you're the host of Locked On Indians, but that doesn't really tell the whole story. You've been covering prospects, draft, everything for so long. So what are your thoughts going into this draft? And what do you think? Is it a little bit more unpredictable? I feel like there's a bit more mystery than maybe some of the previous drafts, at least at the top.
Yeah, I feel like it's a year where, there is kind of a consensus at the top. But yeah, there's definitely some mystery. I will say I was kind of curious. I posted my last mock in the middle of the day today. I went over to look at a few others, and there is some chalk with it. So we'll see how it plays. For those who look at me and go, "Why is Locked On Indians host here on the show?" Just to give that the bona fides moment here. Before I came to Locked On, I was a national draft writer for 24/7. Before that, I was scout. Actually replaced Kylie McDaniel at scout. Fun little minor fact. And before him was Franklin, who is now a cross-checker somewhere. But and then before that, I was a draft guy at Indians Prospects / Baseball Insider. When they joined Scout, I got added into that role. So I've been doing this in depth since about 2013. Just for fun since something like 2010 or so. I did watch the first ever broadcast. If you remember that, it was only on ESPN those first few years. Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting class because all the rumors right now, if things go like there's a core 8, like there's this 8 players. Now I don't agree with the core 8. I'll just put that right out there ahead of time. My board is very different, but there's this view of there are 8 players and that there's teams at like 9 and 10 that are really hoping that someone's going to jump up and knock someone down. And then there's also the side story of last year there was such a small draft. There's so much depth this year. The teams are trying to cut those deals, save a little money here, and expand that pool outward. So, yeah, I'm curious to see how these things go. I know we have the same person going 1 here.
Yeah.
Is Mayer's number 2 on my board? I'll be honest. Where is he on yours? Is he the number 1 player on your board as well?
Yeah, that's the really tough one. I think we agree, right? He goes number 1 because it makes sense for a team like the Pirates that can't really miss on this pick. You never can really miss on number 1, but you really can't miss this year when you need to have that cornerstone, that franchise piece, that shortstop. I think that there's some guys that might even potentially have a bit more upside, but I think Mayer's so balanced across the board and still has that really high ceiling that for me, I'm putting him there just because I think he mitigates some of the risk that you get from a classic high school shortstop. But I'm curious, so who's your number 1 overall guy then?
So I think it's important with boards. I think sometimes I feel like some writers, I don't think it's fair to just go purely like, okay, this is the best player, because teams don't get to do that. You have to consider like the cost risk analysis, and you have to consider like how much just plain simply a player is going to cost. Like if one player is going to be cheaper than another one, that to me, that's part of what I have to factor in. Now, I don't have the exact numbers like a team does, but I do have general information. So I think knowing that is important. And for me, it's cheaper than, around the same range. But he's going to be cheaper than Mayer. He's going to be cheaper than Leiter. He's going to be cheaper than Rocker probably. He's going to be, he comes from a program that has a very, very, very low bust rate. Like that is a top coach program at Louisville. I understand catching, he has some questions, but at the same time, he has caught as good of, sorry, I was reading one of our notes there. He's done, he's catching as good of a stat as you'll catch at Louisville. He's got the arm for it, and the bat's going to play. What he did this year is essentially, a first-year starter is kind of amazing. So for me, that's there. I do want to take a second to say thank you to our first comment in chat there. Telling you, Pirates fan, we both think it's going to be Mayer.
Yeah.
He is I've heard from multiple sources different things, but I know that some people hate comps, some people love comps. A left-handed Rondon who can play shortstop was the comp I got from a connected, not with the Pirates, but from another team picking in the top 5. I'll say it that way. Who gave me that comp? So that's.
I think comps are fun, man. Like as long as you're not as long as you're not putting all the stock in it, right? Like it's just a fun reference point. And you mentioned Henry Davis, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I had just talked about it. And the note I put in the mock draft is I said whoever gets him is going to have probably the best value in terms of like pick wise, right? Because he's for whatever reason going to probably go. The earliest I think he's going to go is 4 unless we see something crazy just from what I've heard. But again, you never know. For me, that's nuts because I was comparing his numbers in the mock draft. I talked about this on Locked On MLB Prospects. Was I know he doesn't have as much of the track record, but part of that's not his fault, right? Because if you look at his numbers in the 2020 season, he was on pace to do exactly what he did this past year. But if you compare his junior year to Joey Bart's junior year, and remember, Joey Bart went number 2 out of Georgia Tech. Henry Davis, 370, 482, 663 slash line, 15 bombs, 31 walks, 24 Ks. Joey Bart in 2018.
Too, right?
Yeah, same conference. Exactly. Joey Bart, 359, 471, 632. It's nearly identical. 16 home runs, 41 walks, 56 strikeouts. That's the big difference, right? Joey Bart, what's the one little hiccup in his game right now? It's the swing and miss, though he's been turning that around. I've been really impressed, and I'm still extremely high on Bart. But Henry Davis seems to boast a lot of the same output, a lot of the same skills with less swing and miss. So why is this guy not considered a shoo-in for the top 3 picks? That's a little bit surprising to me. And that's not why I don't have him in the top of the mocks. It's just what we're hearing, right, and what we're seeing. But personally, I would be looking at Henry Davis with any of the top 3 picks, and I'm surprised that that's not the case.
And just to think about the value of catcher. I've talked about it on Locked On Indians a few times. Like if you want to, over the last 3 years, find catchers that qualified and had a runs created plus of at least 100, just average. Find a catcher who could do that for 3 straight years. There's 2. And it's Real Muto and it's Grandal. It's the 2 guys getting paid a ton. There's no one else who has been that consistent. And even if Davis is below average, defensively, just a shade below, so the elephant in the room going to come, which just makes his value higher when you can't do some things that you can't do the framing as well. And even if it doesn't, I think he could play. And even if he doesn't play catcher, yeah, he's got a huge arm. It's like he's going to be fine in the outfield. Like I have no problem there. But finding that offensive catcher is so hard to.
Uh-oh. Might have lost Jeff there for a second. But he's making a good point. And also, I'm glad, good timing. If we're going to lose Jeff for a second, I get a Marlins question. So I think the Marlins are going to take catcher at 16 or something else. And that is a really, really tough question. I would think, right? I think if Harry Ford is there, you have to go Harry Ford. I don't see a way where you don't take Harry Ford if you're the Marlins because, in my opinion, you look at somebody like that, right? You need a catcher, no doubt. That's one component of it. But you also are a team that has not had that much success with your development of your high school bats in the past. And I think Harry Ford, he's a high school bat. He's a high school catcher. That usually comes with a lot of stigma, right? The track record of high school catchers is not good. But the thing with Harry Ford is that he is such a good athlete. He's a plus runner. He's got plus raw power. He's got all the tools that you can imagine. I think he can fall back and play center field. And that's what scouts are saying too, is worst case scenario, if he doesn't stick behind the dish, he could play center field. What's the one other position the Marlins really need in their farm system? I would say it's center field. And that's why the Marlins really need to bring back Starling Marte, right? And we're looking at them and saying, who's going to be the heir to center field if they let Marte go? So Harry Ford checks both those boxes. They really need a high upside guy behind the plate. He is a plus hitter. He's got plus raw power. He is a great runner. I think Harry Ford's a no-brainer, but let's play the game where he's off the board because I think teams are really downplaying their interest in him. If they end up losing him, the Marlins do, because he goes off the board a bit earlier, which I'm curious as we get Jeff back in now. We're talking about the Marlins pick at 16, and what we think they're going to do. I think if Harry Ford's on the board, you have to take him because he's that unicorn where you mitigate that high school catcher risk and the stigma. But at the same time, the Marlins also really need a catcher. But let's say he's off the board, because I think that could be the case where there's a chance where he's off the board and you have to adjust and figure out what you're going to do. Where do you go if you're the Marlins? I've heard them tied to Will Taylor. I've heard some other things too. I would be disappointed if they went, and nothing against Will Taylor. I just think they need to go with a more high floor option if they're not getting a catcher. And I don't know. What do you do? I think the no-brainer there is to go with Harry Ford. But what do you do if Harry Ford's off the board? And is there a chance that he goes off the board ahead of 16? I think it's pretty high, but I'm curious what you've been hearing and what you think.
He's rumored in so many spots. He could go. I had him there in my mock, so there is that chance of that. I think, my sleeper there, just due to knowing what they did a year ago. Now there are a lot of concerns with Sam Bachman from from Miami of Ohio. My bad. But, he's got some Max Mayer to him in terms of just build and the pitch combination.
The 270s.
So it's, so he kind of makes sense if they're willing to gamble. The thing, I don't know how highly it's being reported, but he's got a hip issue. And that's what kind of has him being dinged in a few places right now. So, I agree. I had Ford there. Now, the talk is that there may be, they do love, you go and you look at the recent picks, it's a lot of high-level production in college. I don't see a world where that second tier of bats, the McLean, Frelick, or Colton Cowser, I don't see those guys surviving to 16. I don't see them surviving past 14 but there is, I saw Jim Callis. He and I have the exact same first 11 picks. Now I posted mine before his. I was going to say that. He has 4 to 12 to Seattle, which would blow my mind if that happens. I will see how it goes. I'm just fixing my mock because apparently I was stuck in ancient history and I had Robert Ford, who assassinated Jesse James, instead of Harry Ford is the name of that catcher. So I'm just fixing that. It's the downside of being a history major and a baseball person sometimes.
Yeah, there you go. You got too many names in your head.
Too many names in my head.
I'm glad you brought up Bachman too, because we got a great question from May Sophia, and they said, who do we think the Giants are going to take? And I actually had Bachman in my mock going to the Giants. And that's just based on just what I think is a good fit, because I could see Bachman. I love the projection. We talk about the 2 pitches he already has. We need to see a little bit more to be able to solidify the idea that he could be a rotation piece. But I could almost see him being this year's righty Crochet, right? Where he slots right into the bullpen and fills right in and is good to go. And that might be an interesting spot there for the Giants, who are all of a sudden, I think the best story in baseball this year, personally, given the elderly team that they have and all of the fun players. Though I love Buster Posey, I love Longoria. I could digress into that for a while, but I think that gives them a little bit of a boost this year while still looking at the future. And I think Bachman is really slept on. What is there not to like about a guy that runs it up to triple digits and has a 70 grade slider? And it's not like the command is a big issue. What's really the big red flag to you with Bachman? And could you see him going to 14 to answer May's question?
I think I could. I think he could go there. I had Colton Cowser, the outfielder, who is, it's like him and Matt McLean and Sal Frelick are solidly in that next tier. And they're also the ones that teams are hoping. Like the hot rumor yesterday is Matt McLean to the Orioles at 5. We'll see if that not transgresses. We'll see if it occurs. Let's go for more basic words. But, those are the guys who are viewed as the underslot players. Now, Matt McLean doesn't break his finger in the beginning of May. Good chance he might just be top 5 to begin with. And don't sleep on the Diamondbacks with him either. That was not a burn.
That would be a wild story. That would be a wild story.
Yeah. And his brother is one of those players who just pulled himself out of the draft. So there's McLean stuff all around. Nick McLean, when Cody Schreier from Jay Sarah was, Josh Hartle's the big name, but Cody Schreier was a good bet going around too if he hadn't pulled his name out. But I love Bachman. I think I have him 10th on my big board. Worst case, he's 11th. And like you said, now there is some data that says his fastball is a bit straight, doesn't have the best spin. So that could also be like the minor ding. But when you have the slide, his slider is probably the best in the class. Worst case I really see is 2-pitch, filthy back end reliever. And I agree. I think he could be up tomorrow if a team really wanted to push him. It's just a matter of health. And I always play this draft game as like, I just want guys who are going to play in the big leagues. I'm always a little bit more conservative. And as long as he is healthy, I don't see a way that he is not a 10-year pitcher in the big leagues just with that fastball slider combination.
I totally agree. So to finally answer that question before we start segueing really into the live draft is, what's the best case scenario then for the Giants, you think? I would consider Montgomery there potentially. What do you think? I think the ceiling is limitless there, but what's the best case scenario for the Giants?
Absolute best case. I don't think there's a world where Rocker gets there. No. So I think based on my board, it's probably Sal Frelick, who I'm very high on, the former three-state.
I would love that. That.
Yeah, I think he is I have him 7th on my board. I'm higher on him than many because he started out hot and then slowed down as the year went on. But all-state quarterback, all-state hockey player, all-state baseball player. So, yeah, I think he's the guy to go. I think that's best case is probably Sal Frelick.
And so a little bit on Frelick real quick is that super high floor guy, in my opinion, great bat to ball skills, great athlete, as you alluded to. I've heard nothing but amazing things about his attitude, his makeup, everything that he does and the way he approaches the game. And to me, good chance to be a big leaguer and an above average big leaguer for a long time and could slot into that outfield rather quickly, which would not be a bad pick at all for that team. I would say not quite the ceiling of Garrett Mitchell, but has some of that high floor athleticism and just ability to be a steal in the middle of the first round. So I like that as a best case scenario for them as well. I could see them going any direction, and that's the good part about the Giants. And I got to see a couple Giants today at the Futures game with Heliot Ramos as well as Marco Luciano. That was an absolute blast. So I really did enjoy that, and we could talk about that all day too. I was in heaven in that Futures game. But anyways, we hit the top of the hour. Of course, I'm Aram Leighton, host of Locked On MLB Prospects. I'm joined by Jeff Ellis, who's the host of Locked On Indians, and you've been around, as you alluded to earlier, just around the prospect, the draft, all of that world for so long, formerly of 247, Scout, IBI, you've seen it all. You've seen the industry
So
change.
I got to step on your foot here. Surprise, it's going to be Henry Davis.
To who?
To the Pirates.
Did that just happen?
I don't think it's officially announced yet, but it's going to be Henry Davis 1-1 to the Pirates.
No way.
Throwing off every one. We should bring in Ethan of Locked On Pirates. Again, sorry to step on your feet there. So, Ethan, have you seen that? Now, I'm telling you, you're getting the best player in this draft for value. You can never have too many catchers. How are you feeling about Henry Davis, newest Pirate?
Well, I mean, we've needed catchers for a while. I mean, outside of Endy Rodriguez, there's really no guys in the system behind Jacob Stallings who could be potentially a trade piece by the end of this month if they really want to do anything with it. Henry Davis, though, from everything I've seen from him, the kid can hit the baseball really well. I've seen comparisons to Will Smith. I've seen some comparisons to other players as well. His arm is ridiculous. I believe it graded out at a 70 out of 80 on the 2080 grading scale. So, I mean, I like it.
Well, that was great timing for us, right? That was great timing for us. We were just talking about how it makes no sense that Henry Davis is not expected to go in the top 5. And that's what it looks like is going to happen. I mean, if that's the case, holy crap. I think it's a great pick. Like you mentioned, Ethan, thanks for joining us. I'm sorry. I did not even formally say hello because I'm in shock right now. I'm actually in shock if that's the case, but not for a bad reason. I mean, we're talking about him. I was just saying the numbers are right there with Joey Bart, who went number 2 overall in the draft in 2018. I would say his numbers are better than Joey Bart's in his junior season and has just about all of the same skill set. Maybe not the receiving's maybe the only thing that isn't quite there, but the offensive profile I think is potentially better. I think it makes sense.
It's official, by the way.
What?
It's official.
It is official. Jeff Passan just tweeted out about it.
Oh my goodness. So the Pirates probably underslot there, right? And now
I would assume so, yes.
I think that's brilliant. I think it's brilliant.
Yes.
So I agree. He's number 1 on my board. I mean, it's the right choice.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And the thing is, too, is, I mean, they want to spend all the money that they have with this bonus pool. They have the most bonus pool money in the entire draft. They want to spend it. So if they do choose to go underslot with Davis here, which is a smart move, they can spend a ton more money in the second round, the second compensatory round, and then everything else, which I'm very happy with because let's be honest here, Ben Cherington has a really good track record of drafting players. Really good. I mean, I think I saw earlier he's drafted Dustin Pedroia, Mookie Betts. The list goes on of players he's drafted, and I'm really excited for Henry Davis. Honestly, I said to watch out for him, but I didn't think they would actually do it.
Yeah, exactly. It makes all the sense in the world. It just didn't seem like they would actually do it. And you'd think there'd be a little bit more rumblings there. And wow. So that is awesome because now they have some flexibility potential. We'll see what the numbers are. We're not sure, but we're assuming it's going to be under slot at 1. I mean, there's no way he's getting the full number 1 overall slot value there. So they save some money, and they're going to be able to potentially go over slot with some of their other picks.
Henry Davis right there on my board. Oh, and
they're going to be able to do some good stuff. And the Pirates are in a spot, right? Let's be real. They're not great at the big league level. They've got some talent up there, but they've got a lot of work to do. And I think you can do something like that where the difference between the first overall pick and the 5th overall pick sometimes is negligible, right? How often is the 5th overall pick or the 20th pick better than the first guy? So if you really like somebody and you have a high floor option with still a boundless ceiling that Henry Davis has, and you can start to make some other moves later in the draft and start to make some and pick up some more value, I think it's a great move. And I will say, you mentioned how Cherington's drafted. I loved the excuse me. I loved the Pirates draft last year. And Nick Gonzalez was my favorite pick. I thought that was the best value pick there. He's one of my favorite prospects in baseball. I'm a little biased. I got to watch him the whole summer in the Cape, but just a professional player. And Henry Davis is kind of cut from that same cloth.
I mean, look at the potential infield the Pirates could be boasting in 3 years. Henry Davis is your catcher. Mason Martin is your first baseman. Nick Gonzalez is your second baseman. O'Neal Cruz is your shortstop. And Key Brian Hayes is your third baseman. Honestly, that's not very bad based on what we saw 2 years ago from this team. I mean, it's really not counting what you're getting from Adam Frazier's trade value, what you could get from Brian Reynolds if you do decide to move him or even wait until next year to move him. Richard Rodriguez is going to get some value even with Craig Kimbrell joining the trade market. Whoever doesn't get Kimbrell is going to still want a closer. Lots of good things are happening in Pittsburgh, and I've been trying to tell that to people, but it's a lot of impatience. But I am very excited right now as to what I'm seeing, especially with a pick like this, because Davis immediately goes into our top 5 in our prospect pool, and he's easily the best catcher in this draft, easily the best catcher in the system. And, I mean, I'm not sure of his ETA or how long they're going to be patient with him, but I would not expect him to be waiting too long.
Unbelievable. And I wanted to go back to May Sophia's question because we got just thrown off for a second, but righty crochet would be so helpful for us. Do you think that there's anyone Farhan might grab as a pitcher who fits more of the slower fastball but high spin mold? Nick Swinney, so also a guy that I saw a ton, Nick Swinney, I love, and I think that was a steal of all steals. But you mentioned the Pirates too. They've got some guys that I think are low-key, exciting arms. The Giants could do something like that too. What do we think in terms of that question, Jeff, and what they could do potentially with some of the other arms in that area? And then I want to talk to Ethan about some of the targets that he has now that they have some more money potentially with the rest of their picks.
You know, those arm types, I'm just going through my big board over here. I kind of wonder about like a Kai Bush in round 2, the St. Mary's arm, who's a developmental type. They do tend to scout California well. Tommy Mace, who's been around forever, is one of those players to know. And
they develop really well. I mean, the Giants have done such a good job of unlocking that. And that's the thing is we talk about creative GMs, and when the Giants are in a different spot now, but they're in a different spot because they were creative. The Pirates just went really creative, and I'm interested to see what the Giants end up doing. So what do you think this does flexibility-wise for the Pirates now? So what are they now maybe able to attain in their subsequent picks?
Can I throw a name out there I was kind of thinking about when they made this pick? A player that, I was talking to someone that they feel like he wants to sign, What about Jayden Hill from LSU, a guy who could have been a 1-1 candidate before the season began, just completely unable to stay healthy. I think 21 total innings in college. Maybe it's up to the 30s, but it's definitely under 40. Let's put it that way. Just electric stuff. If you're saving a lot of money and you want to come back and go for just a home run swing, you want to swing out of your shoes, Jayden Hill is kind of a name in that area. I mean, I think I have him right around 30, 31 on my board. Pirates pick 37. He could be interesting. And then you never know who's going to slide. We have that. There's going to be someone there. I know, like in my last
type of guy.
Yeah. Well, I know, like in my last mock, like the prep arm slid. Like I had Solometo, Painter.
I think Painter's going to slide.
All going in like the comp area. And like I'm a huge fan of Frank Mazzicato.
The no-hitter machine.
You know, he's great story of like I typed his last name in Google. If you haven't done this, excuse me, you can go check out his family's bakery. They're really famous in Hartford. You know, go make yourself hungry for a nice snack. Go check that out. His brother, though, was also his brother had a 0.0 ERA as a senior in high school. He's a D1 pitcher right now. So he comes from a bloodline. He's got that curveball. He still might be 17 or he turned 18 in June. He's a real young guy. So he could be there. You know, there's some interesting ways for them to go. I mean, another just a swing out of your shoes. I know I'm hogging airtime here. I'm still high on Joshua Baez. I know other people have kind of fallen off that train, but I think he's one of the 5 youngest players in the class. He has a cannon. I mean, I project him as an outfielder, not a pitcher, but looking at a 17-year-old that does a bit of everything. He could be and he's a cold weather player. So those Massachusetts kids just don't get as long of a season and they don't get as many eyes on them. And sometimes a player like him slides just because he's in Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
So those are just some names to throw out there.
Absolutely. And I think when you look at the options now, and again, the Pirates, I think they are really expediting this process, right? They're doing a great job. But, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and that's a difficult situation to have to turn around. And you got to go for those swing out of your shoes types of moves. Sometimes they're going to pan out, sometimes they're not. And I think that Jayden Hill, that's a dude that if you don't overslot him in the comp area, he's probably going to leverage LSU. I'm sure he would be happy to go to Pro Bowl. I don't have any intel on that, but I'm sure he's happy to bet on himself given how talented he is. The weird juxtaposition of it is that he has been hurt, but he also doesn't have a lot of miles on his arm. And I know he got Tommy John, but I mean, you talk about the shoulder and anything else. He doesn't have a lot of miles on his arm. He didn't really focus on pitching until late. I almost think it was a bit of a body shock more than anything. So you get him in the right hands, you develop that kid, you take your time with him. That's a guy where you look back in a few years, you could say, how the heck did they get him in the comp round? Because we talked about it. If he's healthy this year and pitches all the way through, he could be right in that conversation with Rocker. He's got the same body. He's got the same capability stuff-wise. And I think he's already got a better feel for a changeup than Rocker did. So this is a really interesting spot for the Pirates. I can't wait to see what they do. And I'm very, very excited to see some creativity here. Take advantage of a weird draft process. I think the slot system is a little bit unique. We can talk about that another time. But if you can utilize it in your favor as a team like the Pirates, I thought that they should go Marcelo Meyer just because I thought that was a safer option, but I think Henry Davis is right there in terms of safe options, and now you save some cash. This is going to be fun, and the fact that one pick in, we're already throwing me off of out of my mind, and I'm so excited, unbelievable. But Ethan, thank you for coming on. Last thing I want to ask you then, who do you want? Anybody on your mind now when you're thinking about now that you just basically found some extra money, some loose change in your pocket? What are you buying?
Well, we already have his brother. Let's pray for a drop of Will Bednar to drop to 37. So Will Bednar can start games, and David Bednar, his brother, can relieve him in those games. That's what I'm looking for. I love Jayden Hill as well. Mazzicato, love him as well. Also another guy, hey, why not draft Max Muncy? There's already one good one in the league now. You might as well draft the other one, right?
If you get one of those 3 arms, I'm giving them an A+. They could draft me and Jeff with the rest of their picks, and I'd still give them an A+ because.
Okay, but what position are you and Jeff playing though?
I'm coming off of Labrum a couple years ago, so I'm going to go with the super utility guy. I don't know about Jeff.
Is there a extreme DH? Just
well, there we go.
A version of that. I'm just going to lean into every pitch. Just going to get one of those giant arm protectors.
Hey, Ronald Acuna had some success doing that, but
yeah.
Also hope he comes back very soon. A brutal injury there. But Ethan, thank you for taking the time. I'm hoping you're as excited as we are because I think this was a great outcome. And we'll be hearing from you. You'll be hearing from us around comp time, and we'll see what the deal is over there. But fun first pick. Pirates are rolling. They're doing some good things, and a lot to be excited about, I think, in Pittsburgh. I hope fans are starting to realize that the light's at the end of the tunnel. But, Ethan, thanks again, and great talking to you as always.
Oh, yeah, of course. Thank you.
So that's fun. We just got people coming in and out. We got some shock factor, crazy stuff happening. And, man.
It's funny, just as I go through.
We set that up perfectly.
Yeah, and how many people are out there criticizing this pick? Like, why don't you go 1-1 with this? Why do you cut a deal? I know Bryce is coming in here, but I think you and I just want to both reiterate, this is not them drafting off board. This is not them taking a lesser talent. They got a very good player.
Yeah, right. This isn't them punting. I wouldn't even liken it to, as Bryce Jordan says, what's going on, man? Thank you for hopping in. I wouldn't
Thanks for having me.
And nothing against like Heston Kjerstad, right? I think he can be a solid player. I really am not as high on him in terms of prospect status, and to take him 2 overall, it's not that kind of punt pick, so to speak. I really, really like this selection. And now the Rangers are just opened up to a whole different world of opportunity. And now, I mean, I had Lawler just because I think it makes so much sense. You keep the Texas kid, you have that franchise cornerstone. But that was honestly just because I have no idea what in the world they're going to do. And I just was like, all right, I'll fall back on the local kid thing. Now you got Meyer available. You've got Lawler available. You've also got Leiter. And you've got some other options there too. First, I'll ask Jeff what he thinks is going to happen. But I want to hear first what Bryce wants now that a lot has changed. Marcelo Meyer's on the board.
Yeah, what I want, just first and foremost, I don't want a pitcher. I've been burned too many times. The last time the Rangers had a top 5 pick, clearly didn't go well with Dylan Tate. And I've been burned before. I see a lot of those same worrying signs in Kumar Rocker. But like literally any of these shortstops, give me any of them, give me all of them. I don't really care that much. I was thinking the Rangers would go Khalil Watson. I thought Meyer was going to be off the board. I thought they're going to go Khalil Watson and like maybe be able to sign him like underslot. And you stole the name out of my mouth of Jayden Hill. I thought they might be able to go overslot on someone like a Jayden Hill in the second round, which I don't know. Just give me a shortstop, please. Any of them will do. I don't care which one. Just give me a shortstop, pretty please.
So that tees you up, Jeff, because you can't go wrong with any of these shortstops, in my opinion. I love Watson. I love Meyer. I love everybody. I love Lawler. They're all exciting, well-rounded players that have really boundless potential. You can pick and choose little things, and based on what your preferences are in a prospect, that's who you prefer. So that being said, you're the Rangers right now. You're on the clock. What are you doing, Jeff?
I mean, if I'm the Rangers, I'm taking Marcelo Mayer and just, I think for me, there was a top 2. I'll be honest. Like there was 2 players that I really it wasn't even a debate. I had Davis solidly 1. And then after kind of going through, I had Mayer solidly 2. And then, I mean, the next group is just a clump to me, honestly, of, Lawler, Watson, Leiter, Rocker. They all have a degree of warts that make them a little bit different than those first 2 players. So I think it's rather easy to go there. I will say, is this the point? Maybe I shouldn't give this on the air. Maybe I'm burning my source. When I mentioned that someone had given me...
By the way, the Rangers just made their pick. It's Leiter.
It is Leiter.
No way.
Yeah, I had a gut feeling they were going to do that.
The Rangers and everyone in baseball are really annoyed with the Boston Red Sox and the way they manipulate things. And if you go, I'll give a bit of a plug, MLB Draft, MLBDraftNow.blogspot.com. I kind of go in depth on the Leiter situation in my mock. The Rangers were just going to be like, forget it. We'll take you. Yeah, it might mess up our pool if you try to play hardball, but it's going to hurt you more. And we'll get our pick next year. A lot of people were very unhappy with what the Red Sox are trying to do in their manipulations. And the Red Sox top 2 players are gone right now. And we're sitting there looking at everything for them. And they are just, I mean, right now, this has been the worst thing that could happen to the Red Sox, which is interesting because we have you on to talk about the Rangers, but the Red Sox they tried to manipulate. They were, talking to multiple players, trying to mess with signings, and here we are. I had this going there because the Rangers had 100%. By the way, Marcelo Mayer is the next pick. We don't even have to discuss it. That's Detroit Detroit loves him more than, give me a good pop culture reference from one of you, but that's for sure happening next. But yeah, the Rangers weren't going to be bullied. Like, this was just a situation. Like, they've targeted kind of safer players. He fit their mold. And the more that Leiter and his family tried to manipulate, it felt like the more the Rangers were going to be like, no.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with the process, which I kind of teased earlier, is it leaves a lot of room for manipulation on both ends. Generally from the team's end, but certain players have that ability as well. Look, Bryce, you guys got a legitimate dude, though. I will say that. I know you don't want a pitcher, but if you're going to get a pitcher, that's the one you want. Jack Leiter's checks all the boxes in the makeup, the killer instinct. The fact that his dad just groomed him, to become this killer on the mound. And I'm a huge Jack Leiter fan. The ceiling is limitless. I just saw Cole Winn pitch today. He looked great. There's some positives. I would have liked to have seen the shortstop for the Rangers too. But without burning any sources or anything like that, Jeff, can you just gently explain a little bit about the manipulation and how that works and from a general standpoint of how a team, so to speak, could do that?
So what we had was the Red Sox offering a high amount to him, hoping that, he would tell other teams he wouldn't sign, while also calling other players and trying to encourage lower amounts for them to present. So the idea being that, hey, we're going to look for this player. We think we would offer you this if you get here. So basically making it so, for instance, if you're Jordan Lawler and the Boston is going to offer you, or I'm sorry, Texas is going to offer you like $7 million. Boston's like, hey, if you get here, we're only going to offer you 4.5. So making it so it is less attractive to go to Boston if you're anyone but Leiter, but making it more attractive for Leiter and making Leiter harder to sign by other teams. They were doing a lot of things. Like I said, last night I had two separate calls, one at 1:30 in the morning and one at 3:30 in the morning. And both calls were expressing extreme frustration with the Boston Red Sox. They were both just, and that's why when I went today, I kind of debated the Leiter pick heavily. And, I know there's some people in Texas who loved Mayer. But yeah, there was also some like, no, you're not going to push us around to this pick. And that's not going to come out. That's not going to be said. They'll talk about, he's a fantastic prospect. It's not that this is a bad pick, but I just felt the more that the Leiter camp tried to do to make it not happen, the more the Rangers were just digging both were digging their heels in.
Well, there was some rumblings, he'll happily go back to school if he doesn't get drafted by the right team. And it's all those leverage plays. And again, baseball's draft is very unique in that regard. But the good news is, right, the Rangers get a stud in a frontline starter potential with, I think, a high floor and a lot of things going for him, and should be a fast track to the big leagues, in my opinion. So that's what you got to look forward to. The other side of things, though, is there's no slot savings here, right? There's no it's going to be kind of the status quo the rest of the way for the Rangers. What should they do? What's their approach now the rest of the way, Jeff? And then Bryce, what would you like to see the rest of the draft? Actually, let's start it with you, Bryce. What would you like to see the rest of the way now? Because you gave me what you wanted, and unfortunately, I couldn't do anything to help you deliver that to you. I'm sorry.
That's all your fault.
Yeah, I think we jinxed it. But unfortunately, it didn't go the way you wanted, but you got the best pitcher available. And now there's still a lot of picks to go. So what are you hoping for the rest of the way?
So I had nothing against Leiter. I liked Leiter as a pitcher, but just pitching prospects, they're always extremely risky. And some of the reasons that I was reading about the Rangers, why they wanted Leiter, and there was always a lot of buzz, and I wasn't sure if that was like fake buzz or if that was like legitimate buzz, but them talking about how he has a shorter time to the big leagues and like kind of seemed like they were trying to shortchange the rebuild, which they have been reluctant to do. I mean, they only this is like year 2 of the actual rebuild. They were competitive for a very, very long time. And then sort of towards the end of it, 17, 18, even 19, they kind of could have just gone full into the rebuild, but hesitated and were mediocre. And then the last couple of years were kind of forced into it. So I don't know. I like that they're not going to be safe. I was a little worried about them taking someone and trying to go under slot value and then trying to use that savings on somewhere else. If you got the number 2 overall pick, you got to go big. If you like Leiter, which apparently they do, and they really believe in him, all right. Obviously, they know a lot more than I do, and so if that's your guy, go get him, pay him what you can, and secure your top guy, because these next 2 top this year and probably next year another top 5 pick. The Rangers can't afford to not have a star. They don't have a lot of stars in their minor league system. I mean, they got a lot of really good, probably a decent amount of big leaguers, but not a whole lot of like impact stars, and those guys are really hard to get. So if you have a number 2 overall pick or another top 5 pick next year, maybe you got to go find out who you like and go for them, go all in on them, and that's what they're doing. So I can respect them doing that.
I'm gonna step on your feet a little bit here. Jackson Jobe next, not Mayer. So my the whole industry's knowledge base that Detroit was anything you've read is about Detroit being madly in love with Mayer must have been the biggest silkscreen in the world. Jackson Jobe, pick number 3. Shortstops are sliding.
What?
Story of the early draft. Yeah. But hey, I'm now I'm 2 out of 3 for my first 3 picks in the mock, so I got that going for me, which is
I'm
nice.
in shambles. I'm in absolute shambles.
I think Rangers in round 2. You know, you're talking about what to go.
Lawler's going to be there in round 2. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying he might. I mean, I heard heard some talk yesterday that Nike wants him to go to Vandy. That the connection to that program and his own future connections to Vandy, there's some encouragement due to the new Vandy-Nike relationship for Lawler too, especially because he's going to be draft eligible in 2 years. So that's, again, this is stuff you may not hear on the traditional broadcast, but we get to be the outlaws and give some information that you may not, an MLB one can't give you. But he might be that guy who ends up not getting drafted, depending on where he goes. I do think Texas is really interesting. A name I would like to circle for them, just because I think they're going to need to save money at some point, is one of my personal favorites, Nico Cavadas from Notre Dame.
The guy rakes.
Yeah, he rakes. He just absolutely rakes. He's a senior, bad body, undersized, DH only, but he hits. I would bet on him being a major leaguer. I would bet on a 35 home run season. And you're going to get him for significantly under slot in round 2 or 3. And if the Rangers need that money savings, just a name to kind of, he would, he's not Joey Gallo, but he could give you some of that Gallo power, as I know Joey Gallo is a sad spot for Bryce this year. So I'm trying to send a power bat your way.
He's a happy spot. He's going to be here for a long time, and I'm in deep denial that he will ever leave. And, if he does, you won't hear from me for about 2 months or something like that.
All right. So that'll be unfortunate, but so I'll see you in 3 months then. But thank you for taking the time to hop on. It'll be a while until we talk, but Bryce, always a pleasure, man. I'm sorry it didn't shake out, but guess what? You got 19 more rounds to go, and you still got a frontline starter. A lot to be excited about. Rangers needed some help with the arms, and I think this is a guy they can't screw up. I think, really. So that's the good news. But Bryce, thanks for jumping on. Wish you a fun rest of the draft day, and all the best with Joey Gallo.
Thanks, y'all. Take it easy.
It's a Texas guy when he hits us with a y'all, but great guy. Feel for Bryce. It's tough. It's like, is there a dejection there when you draft Jack Leiter? Like, you still got to be pretty damn happy with that, right?
He's 5 on my board. I'm not as high on Leiter just because the season regression and the build. Like, he's not my type of player. Like, I can appreciate what he did, and I think there's a lot of good things with him. And I think he's like a 3, which is perfectly fine. But that's where I don't. And it's, again, I talked about this at the very top of the show to reset. I do so much that's based too on the idea of how much a player is going to cost. And there's a good chance that Leiter is going to be the most expensive draft pick in this entire class, that he is going to cost you the most money to sign. I'd much rather split that money and do what the Pirates did with a Henry Davis type and spread that money out than go with Leiter. But it's not a bad pick. It's just not who I would pick. I know now that we are up to 6:30, if you're just joining us, I do see we have some questions. I know we'll get to Samuel and Lion Z here.
100%.
But just to do our resets. Yeah. I'm Jeff Ellis. I do Locked On Indians. It doesn't say Indians, just says Locked On, but I'm sporting the Locked On gear here. Before I joined, I'll tell you in a second.
I'll jump on that too. But
he's the best high school pitcher in the last 3 years.
He's unbelievable.
He's still 11th on my board for a reason. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but I understand the frustration, Devin. But again, I'm Jeff Ellis. I've been writing about the draft since about 2011, 2012. I started at Indians Prospect Insider. I got the Francisco Lindor pick right. That started to get some attention my way. Eventually, I went to work at Scout. I replaced Kylie McDaniel as the draft writer at Scout. I can say I've been on national radio, and you might have heard me on Drive Time in your area through various, just not in Cleveland, the one area I host for, but everywhere else I've done a show. Then I went to 24/7 when Scout bought that, and now I'm at Locked On, and that's kind of my background. Aram, why don't you give them your background, and then we'll answer these questions.
Yeah, so it's a pleasure to be joined by you, because it's awesome that I'm the Locked On MLB Prospects host, also Locked On Marlins, and the amazing thing about baseball too is with Locked On MLB Prospects, I'm always talking about, of course, prospects across the game, and I always want to talk draft as well, but the draft is so nuanced in baseball that's almost an entire expertise in itself, right? And I love keeping up with it, but to the degree that you have, that the just knowledge from it, a lot of it is just from what you've seen in the past too, right? Because you've seen how a lot of this stuff is shaken out, and I think that's something that's really important. That the way this system works, right? There's a lot of things that you've seen this before. And for me, it's I'm looking at this player, I'm looking at it almost NBA style or NFL style, where it's just this guy makes sense. He's the best player there. He's a good fit there. But with baseball, with the financials, with the slot values, with the bonus pools, there's so much, and nuance is the best word I can go with. And that's why I'm so glad to be joined by you here, because you mentioned your experience covering the draft for basically a decade, and the amazing things that you've been able to accomplish, the different people you've interacted with. And I think that really helps, contextualize everything here. But I have loved talking prospects, and I'm excited to kind of join our forces here with your draft expertise, the prospect background, and a lot of these guys that I've been fortunate enough to see in the Cape or wherever it may be. But it's good to have the context of where it all goes now. So the Red Sox, they end up going. Where are they going now? And then we're going to answer some of these questions. But also, Lion Z, thank you, my man. I appreciate that. And I'm always a fan of all of your tweets and all of your interaction. You honestly beat me to some stuff. You inform me more than you think.
I know we got to get to these questions, and we promise everyone we will. We'll talk about Mayer briefly, and then we got another guest host coming in here in a second. It's a fantastic pick by the Red Sox. If you go on Twitter, I posted the joke with the gif of the crying from Arrested Development, because we all knew that Boston, they wanted Davis, they wanted Leiter. But I will say it's interesting. Every single mock until my last one, I mocked them a shortstop, because Bloom came from Tampa, and the Tampa approach is not college players unless they're up the middle and freak athletes. It's a lot of good velocity arms. Those Leiter is not a Tampa pick. That's not traditionally. Davis would have been, but Marcelo Mayer, it fell into their laps, and it's a great pick. There's 4 picks in. I really do not like what the Pirates did, or Pirates. No, I love what the Pirates did. What the Tigers did, yes. And so Boston didn't get the guy they wanted, but they got a fantastic one. Now the question really becomes, what is Baltimore going to do? Are they going to go crazy under slot? Are they going to take Khalil Watson here, who I had in my mock, who I think is going to be an underslot value? But thanks for joining us here. Who do you want, Connor? Who's the what's left of what's left? Who do you hope goes to your Baltimore Orioles?
Well, Jeff and Aram, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. At this point, we're kind of at the point where Rocker would be the pick where the general fan base feels happy after tonight, but it feels like this has got to be Khalil Watson.
You guys don't even have a shortstop. Henderson's a third baseman. You don't have. Am I wrong? Is there any shortstop in system that you feel like could be a starter down the road?
So Henderson and Jordan Westberg are both in the system right now,
and I think they're both third basemen. I love Westberg too. Don't get me wrong.
The thought is maybe that honestly, especially if they were to take Watson, the dream becomes Henderson goes to third, Westberg goes to second, and Watson plays shortstop.
That'd be unreal. That'd be
amazing.
Infield. Because Westberg can hit. I got to see that guy in the Cape. Unbelievable ability to just hit to all fields. It's really a line drive approach, but he gets his power pretty easily. I'll say in my mock draft, I had Cowser because I just think the Orioles are going to do their classic punt. But I will say I think punt is harsh with Cowser because I do really like Cowser. I was lower on Kjerstad last year. I was not a fan of that. If there's a guy you really like that you can underslot, I'm a big fan of Cowser. You can argue that he's one of the if not the best college bat maybe in this draft, right? Outside of maybe Henry Davis. I like him a lot. If that's the move there and they're able to utilize that money in the right way with their later picks, are you upset there, Connor? If you take a Cowser and then are able to utilize it in a way where you get who you want with that later pick?
Yeah, I think we saw it last year. You know, we still have no idea of knowing, and we're not going to know for a while, you know, how that Kjerstad pick works out because he hasn't been able to get on the field. And of course, you know, it's been awful. It's been dealing with myocarditis for over a year now and still hasn't been able to get on the field. And that's no fault of anyone.
Oh, no,
really.
Of course not.
The Orioles didn't know when they drafted him. He didn't know when the Orioles drafted him. So we haven't gotten to see that. But the thing is, they went and got Kobe Mayo and Carter Baumler out of high school in the 4th and 5th rounds last year, who most people thought Mayo was going to Florida. I forget where Baumler was committed, but everybody thought those two were going to college. And Mike Elias saves that money with Kjerstad pick. You know, he was around 9, 10, 11, I think, in most people's big boards and mock drafts last year, maybe a little lower for some people. And they took him second. All of a sudden, you know, they take Kjerstad, they get Mayo and Baumler. Now, Baumler's had Tommy John already, but Mayo is, I mean, that dude's a beast. And you're talking about like third base. Maybe it's him at third base. You know, if Gunnar Henderson sticks at shortstop, I mean, that guy looks good. And, you know, this draft is going to have so much talent, as it always does, that, you know, Cowser is, you know, it's not like Kjerstad was, like Kjerstad rampaged through the SEC.
Oh, of course.
It's not like he was some schmuck that they took. And the same with Cowser. Like I know he plays at Sam Houston State, so it's a little bit of a different look just to the competition he plays, but he's one of the best bats in college that is in this draft. And I will say him and Sal Frelick were kind of the two names that were mentioned for Orioles underslot pick. I do not want Sal Frelick. It is almost just because of a size thing. And like, we just need to draft bigger dudes.
Yeah, I think you need guys with more upside too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I love the Orioles system. I put it tier one, top of tier one, right? And they've got so much talent, but still, you've got to be able to hit with some more upside here. You want to continue to bolster this farm system. I love what you say about Mayo, local kid from where I'm from Stoneman Douglas, hell of a baseball player. Got to see him play a ton. He's got a ton of upside. When you're able to get more value there in the later rounds, it's worth it. So I'm kind of like refreshing, waiting to see what the O's do here.
So it is Colton Cowser. Now,
finally, I get one.
We talk about I went with Watson, shortstop still sliding. What we talk about is model-based scouting. And we know the Orioles are a team that uses the models. Now, by those models, Colton Cowser is just a hair, just very slightly below Henry Davis as a hitter. And you look at the trajectory of Cowser. The other thing is he's a potential center fielder. Like, he may not win any awards, but could he stick there? I think so. I think there's a very good chance. You're looking at, are the tools going to blow you away? No, but there's production. He walks. He hits for power. If he has 55 hit, 55 power, 50 defense in center field, that's an all-star. And yes, this is going to be an underslot pick here. I have him 9th on my board. I had Kjerstad 7th or 8th last year. Like, I was a big believer in that because I use model-based on my own approach. So it's not a surprise that I'm kind of higher on some of the guys the Orioles are. I thought that the hot rumor was McLean. I should have stuck to my guns on Cowser here. I did not get this pick. Yeah, he is, like I said, if you use those advanced models, the only knock on him is he played at Sam Houston State. Like, he played against lesser competition. That is the concern. That is really, if he had done this at a bigger program, he might have been like the number 2 pick in this draft. Like, that's the difference. It's just, and obviously he wouldn't do the same thing against greater competition, but if he could do something close to that, but he's 6.8 is the pick value. I am betting he gets something around half that. I bet they save more than half of slot, while getting, like I said, the player who's 9th on my personal big board right now, and by a lot of advanced modeling is closer to Henry Davis than he is than he is to Sal Frelick or Matt McLean, who are the next 2 college bats on the board.
So how does that make you feel, Connor? So now you've seen this work, right? You mentioned it. I would say it's early, but it seems like it worked pretty well with the way they thought it would shake out last year. And you assume it's going to hopefully shake out the way they expect. We floated a ton of names in the comp round, early second, that could be really high upside options. Jayden Hill. We've talked about a few different guys that you could potentially steal there with an overslot and take away from college or from going back to college. Andrew Painter, several other guys. How do you feel about this Cowser pick? I know that you were bracing for something like this. And what's your thoughts now moving forward?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, this is going to be it's going to kind of assure the Mike Elias is going to go underslot thing, because really when you look back at it, I mean, the Correa pick kind of set this all up back when he was in Houston. And then the big thing being last year when everybody thought, it's Martin or Torkelson, one's going to go to Detroit, the other one's going to go to Baltimore, and they go Kjerstad. And those two examples made everyone think Elias does this every year. I mean, he took the slam dunk number one in Adley Rutschman 2 years ago. Like, it's not like he, walked away from that. So if the slam dunk is there, and the way the baseball is happening this year, the Orioles are probably going to pick first next year. And if there ends up being a slam dunk, he's shown that he's going to take that slam dunk number one and pay the full slot. But he's shown when he's not at number one, he's going to do this. And the thing with Cowser too, like, I know he is not playing, SEC baseball, but, and I know he's a mid-major player, but he's playing in the Southland. This is a conference in Texas with a lot of good baseball players that come out of that conference. And at Sam Houston State, 55 games this year, 374, 680 slugging, 490 on base, 16 home runs. He's not facing Leiter and Rocker and, the guys from Arkansas and Ole Miss, but, he's still got great stats. And even his true freshman year in 2019, I mean, 361 average, 450 on base, slug 602. I mean, this is a pure hitter. And, as you said, probably the second best hitter behind Henry Davis. The Orioles are going to take that. And there's another way to look at it too. I'll get to the kind of the underslot, what they could do next in a little bit, but just the fact that, I would have loved Khalil Watson here. I think this is what most Orioles fans kind of fell in love with Khalil Watson, and I would have loved that pick. But if you feel that Grayson Rodriguez and DL Hall and Adley Rutschman are all going to be in the big leagues in 2022 and are all going to be ready to compete by 2023, if you're pulling together college bats and getting them ready for 2023-24, that might be better than Khalil Watson not being ready till 2025 or later. If you really believe in this plan and it's going to work out, this might be better, and then you can get more talent, because it wasn't just Mayo and Baumler last year with the underslot. The Orioles were able to secure Jordan Westberg last year because they went underslot with Heston Kjerstad. They made sure they could get him to Baltimore. And that could happen this year. And you mentioned Jayden Hill. That is a pick I'd be kind of in love with for the second round if he is there, because we know, he had the Tommy John and it didn't look good those couple starts before he got injured, but, he was a top 10 mocked pick, at the beginning of the season. And another guy, if he were to slip because of injury, if Gunnar Hoagland were to maybe slip because of injury into the second round, one of those guys, a college pitcher, Mike Elias seemingly, he's willing to take those guys if they're there. And I'd be okay with that. And here's the thing that separates, I think, the Kjerstad and the Cowser pick. The Kjerstad pick was so out of left field, it felt like last year. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Cowser pick was right here. We know he's being, mocked to the Orioles a lot. We're hearing a lot about him. People are kind of warming themselves up to Cowser. And then you hear, he might be the 10th best player, 9th best player, but he's the second best hitter. And the Orioles, I'll take that. I would have loved Watson too, but I'll take that.
Yep, I totally agree, and I have confidence in the Orioles being able to utilize that extra money now in a way where it's going to work out for them. And I love the timeline point, because I think that's really important as well. And look at the Mariners. I think that you're seeing their young talent start to time up in that way as well, and they're making their way to the big leagues. And I think that's going to be a similar type of approach that the Orioles have. And again, that system is only going to get more elite, and I'm really excited about the Orioles' future. And I think I know you are too, Connor. Just got to get through the dog days. So looking forward to the rest of the draft. I think this was a good pick. It seems like you're coming away kind of just like what you expected or were prepared for. And thank you for taking the time to join us. And give me one more name. Who do you want? I would love to see Bednar. That was someone that we had floated earlier when Ethan came in from Locked On Pirates. What do you think? What's the one guy you're hoping now with the savings, with the extra money to be able to get now with some of the overslot opportunities?
Yeah, I think Bednar is going to go in the first round. I don't think he's going to be there. Just how much rise he got out of the College World Series is just going to
I have him going 12th in mine.
Yeah, but I like Hill, but he looked so bad before the injury, and you could say he was probably injured and trying to pitch through it. But I'm a big Ole Miss guy, and I love these Ole Miss guys. I hope the Orioles take two injured Ole Miss guys. I hope they can get Tim Elko and they get Gunnar Hoagland with these savings, and just bring in these Ole Miss guys, get them healthy, and let them compete at the minor league level.
I love it. I think you're right. And Hoagland's as safe as it gets, even despite the injury, as safe as it gets. And he might be a guy that doesn't even make it that far down either. I don't think the draft stock takes that much of a hit because of how polished he is, but that would be an awesome option there. The Orioles will have a lot of choices, I think, because of the flexibility. And looking forward to seeing your reaction and your thoughts on that. As always, Connor, one of the most just knowledgeable guys that I always have look forward to interacting with on here. And better days ahead for the Orioles. I feel like I have to say this to almost every guy right now because we're that early in the draft. And if you're early in the draft, it means you're struggling a little bit. But Orioles system is loaded. It's only going to get better after today, and a lot to look forward to. Thank you, Connor.
Yep, thanks, guys. Go O's.
Go O's. So
we have pick 6 in real quick. Jumping now, we have Jordan Lawler, the deep. Arizona is fascinating, just because 2 years. The first year this front office was in place, they were hyper conservative. Then they went hyper aggressive the next 2 years, going with prep talent. Last year, they kind of fell back on conservativeness. I liked Bryce Jarvis quite a bit. I thought it was a good selection.
Love that pick.
It was a good pick, and I liked their draft. But this year, I mean, Lawler is, at this point in the draft, in terms of cost and value and everything, I mean, he's the risky guy. He has some contact issues, but if everything works out, he's got, a star all over him. But yeah, the D-backs are, I mean, he's going to be expensive. He probably will be the second most expensive player so far drafted.
And we're talking about the cost analysis, right? And that's something that I think it's a really important point for people to see. Why not go Khalil Watson there if he's going to be cheaper? Maybe he's not as cheap as we think, or do they just prefer Lawler?
They might just like the ceiling. What I always compare it to on my show is you can't trade draft picks. Well, you can trade competitive balance picks. For the most part, teams don't trade picks. So, but the way a team trades down in the MLB draft is taking a Colton Cowser, taking a Khalil Watson, because you then save that money, and it means that you can often get a player of greater value later. So when we're talking about saving that money with Henry Davis, there's a chance that the Pirates at pick 37, maybe 38, I'm trying to remember what pick they have at the top of round 2, are going to get a top 25 player.
100%. So that's why I love it. That's why.
Yeah, and again, Davis is my number 1 player, so it's not so much. But Colton Cowser, item 9th. He's not the 5th best player in this class. I don't think on anyone's board.
It's not far off.
But it's exactly the idea of, okay, so they went from 5 to 9, like on a NBA, NFL, and that monetary savings is going to allow them at pick 41. I just went and looked up the Orioles pick before
to trade into maybe the top 25. Yeah,
to get someone
25, 28.
So this is exactly the equivalent of that. So if you're out there and you're like, why did my team draft the 9th player on your board, or MLB, I think they have him at like 10th. It's like, well, it's essentially a trade back.
Exactly.
And it's the idea of getting more, the same thing. Anyone who watches these drafts, especially the NFL, knows it's like the more chances you have, the better your opportunity. That's what they're doing here.
100%, especially in baseball. Like we say, there's a lot of variables, and the can't miss guys sometimes aren't can't miss. So that leads us into, it's already wild. And we knew this was going to go a little bit crazy. It always does. But now we go into the Kansas City Royals. And by the way, Ryan Miller says he also loves the Davis pick. We're all on the same page there. And again, I just can't get over the fact that we were just talking about, like, why is he so low? Like, why is this happening? And that ends up happening.
This pick is going to get weird.
Oh, gosh. So we're both wrong.
Oh, yeah. It's not anyone you think it's going to be.
Oh, no.
Not House, not Rocker, not Watson. None of those people. This one's going a little bit off board by reports.
Can you give me a hint? Don't give it away. Just like
based on some of the things I was seeing beforehand, I think this could end up being a college pitcher.
Okay.
I don't have the exact name. I just know that apparently it's going to get weird based on what I'm seeing. But I would not be A, and then B, just knowing Dayton Moore, I would not be shocked if it ends up being Frelick. It's exactly the type of guy.
Look, I love Frelick, but dude.
I agree, but I would not. I'm just saying, I wouldn't be shocked if it ends up getting super weird. And
well, it's already weird. It's already weird, man. But this is fun. This is like, if it was going exactly as planned, if our mocks were right on, we'd probably be bored. This is unreal. So let's see where it goes. I'm literally refreshing the feed as we go. But if they go Frelick, look, I think that's a really good high floor option. But what's Frelick's ceiling? Benintendi? Like, what is it? What is it really looking like? That's where it's interesting.
Frank Mazzucato.
No way.
Frank Mazzucato is.
You're kidding. There's no
His
way.
7th pick to the Royals. Yep. He's a model positive. Maybe Dayton really loves their cupcakes.
Dude, he just wants the bakery stuff.
He's like, hey, I get free bakery stuff now, right?
His family owns a bakery, and apparently it's phenomenal from what Jeff says.
It's got 373 Google reviews. Closing soon. You can put in an order still. Italian bakery. Yeah, just type his last name to Twitter. It's the first thing that pops up.
So Italian bakery for life for the Royals. But also, let's not downplay it. Mazzucato, we were just talking about him. We were saying how he would be a steal in the late first. So not a steal, but a guy who has great pitchability, has a good I think he's shown, I can't say track record with a high schooler, but I think he's shown for a decent amount of time now that he can mix it up. He can get outs. He knows how to attack hitters. And I think that he's a high floor guy. I don't know about the ceiling, but as a southpaw, as it says right-handed pitcher in there, but he's a southpaw, very crafty, has a lot of upside. I like him. I mean, I like him. But again, we're talking about the 7th overall pick here. There's so much talent on the board. We're talking about Brady House. We're talking about all of these guys, Khalil Watson, so many players. I understand that you have Bobby Witt Jr., who, by the way, today, he stood out far and away to me at the Futures game as he looked like a 10-year vet, by the way, playing against top prospects. He looked so comfortable against whoever he faced. I was impressed with him beyond belief. But anyways, I think I was expecting them to go maybe with an arm. I was a little bit wary of that because of the way Nick Prado's advanced with Bobby Witt, some of the other pieces they have. But I think when you're the Royals, you're still a little bit of a ways off. I think you go best player available, but what's the rationale here? Obviously, you save the money, and you're going to now. But now if everybody's trying to overslot in the comp round, doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose? Like, aren't you not really gaining that advantage anymore if you're all overslotting in the comp round? Isn't it just like a wash?
I mean, so there's the part of you who goes like Mazzucato, the lefty. Hey, maybe they're just doing stat scouting lines. You know, he threw 4 no-hitters in a row, so maybe they're just doing models based on high school
in Connecticut.
Which would be in Connecticut, baseball hotbed of Connecticut. Not to insult. I mean, I'm from Ohio and now I'm in Wisconsin. We get Ohio has not had a prep player drafted in a very long time early. Like I'm saying, top 3 rounds has not happened.
And I grew up playing in South Florida, right? And you know, we faced like Touki Toussaint and a lot of these guys that were first round types of talent. They were never throwing no hitters. Touki Toussaint never even sniffed a no hitter in high school because you know what, the talent's too good. So I understand that. I mean, if they are really enticed by the stats, then that blows my mind. Again, Mazzucato, very talented.
I have him 28th on my board, and I'm pretty sure I'm the high man.
Exactly.
I had him was far and away. I was the highest player on him. And so it's interesting because the Royals are not what we'd consider a forward-thinking program. They're just not. Like, the reputation on them is not great in terms of the front office and advanced thoughts. And, you know, talking to people, like, if you're a pitcher, there are certain ways you'd speak to the Royals versus a way you'd speak to the Cleveland Indians, and they'd be completely different if you're trying to sell yourself as a prospect. Mazzucato fits the Cleveland Indians system approach. It fits the more analytic, you know, he's young for his class. He didn't turn 18 until June. He's got that curveball, which might be the best curveball in the entire prep class. He, you know, limited exposure, limited reps. I don't even think like he wasn't a travel circuit guy. So you're getting a player who doesn't have a ton of bad, you know, it doesn't have the experience. It's going to make it harder to break bad habits. But it's, here it's shocking. I mean, I'm trying to think.
He's good. He's good, but
he's my number 3 prep arm. Like, he's the number 2 prep arm off the board. But I mean, I didn't have him going in my mock.
And you mentioned the lack of summer circuit, stuff like that. I still, from everything I've seen from this guy, really high floor still, in my opinion, relative to a Northeast high school, you know, prep arm like that. Relative to that, as I don't know if you can hear a train just trucking by, so I'm sorry about that. But unreal to just how unique this draft has been. I'm always bracing for craziness, and I'm still getting like shoved out of my chair. But this also saves the Royals money. We've got a lot of interesting moves here. I like the high floor choice, but at the same time, the Royals have not been doing a great job of developing talent in terms of pitching. But also, I think a big reason why is because of the types of pitchers they go after. They've chased more of the stuff than the pitchability. Now they're getting a guy with more pitchability, and maybe they can teach the stuff. I think maybe they're trying to balance that out a little bit, and that might be a good move for them, and we'll see how it unfolds the rest of the draft. I do think that he is somebody that, if you're the right team, I think the Royals probably will come out and say, we had him way up here. And whether they mean it or not, that could be the case. But I really think it's a fascinating move, obviously, and this shakes a lot of things up. So we had a question way earlier, and I hope my friend is still here, but he asked if, after the Davis pick, if that would affect the chances for the Marlins. Every Marlins fan wants and I'm the host of Locked On MLB Prospects, also the host of Locked On Marlins. So wear two hats there. But the Marlins fans really want a catcher, and understandably so. What does this do for them now in terms of their outlook for a catcher? And then we also got to ask we got to answer my man Lyons' question about what they're going to do at 11, because I believe I had a college background to them. Mm-hmm. This changes a lot.
I'm just still kind of blown away right now. When you look at the way it goes, is McClain the next pick here?
No, there's no way. There's no way. Is it? If it's McClain.
Because it's Colorado, right? That's where we are, Colorado. Yeah, because Colorado is the hyper. Nope, Benny Montgomery.
No way.
Benny Montgomery, Colorado. It's crazy because Colorado, I refused to mock them a college player last year, because in 2019 they didn't draft a college player until like the 20th, or prep player. They didn't draft a prep player until the 20th round. So I can also say a few years ago, I remember going to a baseball game to scout and sitting right in front of a very loud Rocky scout. As much as he bemoaned the fact that they had signed. Who had they signed? They had signed Ian Desmond, and how badly he wanted his team to get Joe Adell, and they were drafting at like 11th or 12th that year when they lost the pick. So if that scout is still there, who was also telling very interesting Dan Ugla stories that I cannot repeat on the air.
Dan Ugla, I'm sure, has got some nutty stories.
I'm like, I don't know what this has to do with the baseball game we're scouting, but this very loud scout. So if that scout is still with the Rockies, he has to be doing backflips, getting Benny Montgomery, who compares very favorably both in the positive and the negative aspects of Joe Adell.
Yeah, I love the upside here. This is one of those picks where, like, okay, it's surprising, but I get it, because I had Montgomery staying home in Pennsylvania to the Phillies, but I also hedged that with he might not be there. So I was thinking more 9 to 12 range, but Benny Montgomery, man, there's a lot of volatility there, right? And you mentioned Joe Adell. Joe Adell is very volatile, but Montgomery is tooled out. Like, he has plus speed. He's got plus raw power potential, and he's, what is he, 6'4", 200? He's got room to fill out even more. He's a specimen, and I like the value there. He could be a guy that just demolishes baseballs at altitude, and that's a good upside option if the Rockies really, really like him, and they probably saved a few bucks there too, because everybody's just trying to save bucks now.
No, you talk about his stats, and I like to go over to Perfect Game. Now, the data is always a year old, but that's the one place where you can get like exit velocity relative to class. So his exit velocity when measured was 99.97 percentile. His max barrel speed 99.89%. His impact momentum 99.96%. His max acceleration 99.19%. So that is his worst percentile rank in terms of just how quick and hard that bat goes.
That's otherworldly. So if you believe in your ability to develop, and I don't think the Rockies have any right to believe in their ability to develop talent, but if you do, Benny Montgomery is that exact guy, right? You're getting a boundless potential type of player.
His 60 was 99.86%, and his outfield arm 99.82%.
So you would say the average of all of those tools is 99.5 percentile, right? So like that is something that, again, if you can develop that guy, the one question is the hit tool. I think he can figure it out, and you're putting him in Colorado where, he's going to have to hit through the minor leagues, and he's going to have to hit in Hartford, Connecticut, and some of those other places. But you figure if the one question is the hit tool and he's able to get through there, there is a huge, like this guy could end up being the best hitter and best all-around player in the draft. So it's far-fetched, but would you be shocked in 5 years if Benny Montgomery is that perennial all-star type if he really figures out the hit tool?
No, it could work out for him. I'm trying to think of the comp I threw on him the other day as I was going through just kind of data. I was trying to find that speed comp, and it's probably actually in my profile. And I don't go look at, because I had him in the teens just because the hit tool is such a if you're an Indians fan, he compares to like Will Benson. There is that room for comparison. Now Will Benson is finally starting to perform well this year. I just could not get past calling Harry Ford Robert Ford. There it is at the top of my my Benny Montgomery one. But yeah, no, there's so much. It's high risk, high reward.
100%. And you know what? The Rockies might have to do
a lotto pick.
The Rockies might have to go high risk, high reward. Their system is not great.
It's bad.
It's bad. Okay, yeah, you can say, you said it, not me. It's not good. And they don't have a ton of talent in the big leagues. And it's not like they're going to cash in on prospects, right? You're going to trade Trevor Story. You're not getting much for him. You're not going to get much for the pieces that you may trade. I think at that point, you've got to go high upside. They do that. Will Benson, by the way, I played against him in a summer circuit game, and he came over onto our side of the field in warmups and just walks right through us as we're throwing, goes foul pole to foul pole, throwing, just warming up. It was just an intimidation factor. It worked, but was just going foul pole to foul pole, and I'm looking at this guy, I'm just like, holy crap. And that's when I realized, yeah, pro ball is never happening. But Benson, toolsy guy, you got to be patient, right? And you say he's putting it together. Could be the same thing with Montgomery. So now the Angels are on the clock.
This fell perfectly for them. I mean,
so they've got
Rocker,
their chance.
House,
Rocker,
Watson.
Yeah, so they're thrilled. They're thrilled, right? They've got to be, Perry Manassian's got to be thrilled right now. But you have a lot of different directions you can go. And we're seeing every team try to save money. I don't think the Angels are in that position where they need to. I really like Ty Madden. And I've made the case that I actually like him more than Kumar Rocker. And I might be crazy for that. I don't know. I haven't actually seen, which is a good thing. I haven't seen your big board, so I love hearing it like live. I wish I did.
On Madden. I'm like the low man on Madden.
Okay, you're low man on Madden. That's fair. Yeah. But regardless, right, you can get that polished college arm that could fast track to the bigs because, my goodness, why do the Angels hate pitchers? They just hate pitchers. And they need help there, right? So you go Rocker maybe there. That's a slam dunk for them, right? I mean, you got to go Rocker here, right?
There's some people who are, view him as kind of Brady Singer-esque at the time he was drafted. I think that's essentially what you're kind of looking at is like, is he more of a – and I feel like it's unfair. I don't believe that. Like I'm higher on – I have Rocker much higher than I was on Singer. I was a doubter on Singer. The problem with someone like Rocker, and we see this all the time, is that pendulum swing where a player I talked about Bryce Terang a few years ago. When a player is what they are and they don't develop or change or do anything deeper for them, sometimes it's like viewed as a negative in their development. And it's like, no, that's just what that dude is. Like, and Kumar Rocker is going to be a solid mid-rotation starter, if not more. But yeah, I think it'd be a slam dunk here. I think he's not that Watson's the highest player left from my board, but I mean, we got three players who were part of the consensus top 8 sitting here at 9. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all falls apart.
So basically, it falls apart is the best way to describe it.
I mean, everyone's kind of like there's a general feel now like that Rocker's going to slide. Like I got a text from someone now, like how far do you think Rocker's going to go? Like do you think he's going to be here at?
I really did heading into this. I had that fear that Rocker was going to slide. I really did. And I almost felt like I had to talk myself out of it. So I was like, okay, at 8, the Rockies need pitching. They can't pass on Rocker, right? But I just didn't see a way Rocker slid past 9. Now I could see anything happening. I'm waiting for my phone to ring. I think I might get drafted. Like this has been the most bizarre thing ever where you just don't know who's going. So I initially thought there's no way that Rocker could not go past 9, given that the Rockies could really use him and that the Angels could really use him. But now,
I think the Nationals will take him. I think that is the absolute floor. The Nationals approach, people always get this wrong because they draft injured guys. It's not that they draft injured guys. The Rockies approach, you can go back, you can look at, I'm blanking on the University of Houston left-hander they drafted who got kicked off the team because of off the field. But they draft players whose stock went down during the course of a season. They don't draft guys who are ascending. They draft guys who are descending and view it as like a way to maximize value. Like, well, we have multiple years of previous data. That's more important than just data on the final year. So I do think Rocker's floor is absolutely 11.
And they went Bachman.
Ooh, Bachman at 9. Interesting.
And so that was somebody.
There's some talk that he would fall out of the first round.
Well, sounds like he is going number 9. And Bachman, look, I was saying, wait, you have him 10?
Yeah.
See, that was for me. It's like, okay, you're looking at Bachman. You liken him to Max Meyer with a bigger body. Obviously, the command not quite there where Max Meyer has it, but 270 pitches. We're talking about 270 pitches, and not really these flagrant red flags. I probably still would have went Rocker, but I can understand this move here. I can understand it, especially if you have concerns about Rocker's ability to sustain velo. Sam Bachman's done a pretty good job of it. I know you pointed out some issues maybe with the pitch data on the fastball and that it flattens out maybe at times. But that's something where if I'm the Angels, I think that's something you could probably be able to fix a lot easier than the fact that you have somebody like somebody that is not sustaining velo as much. And that's probably the reason why. So I like Bachman at 9.
In the majors like next week.
Yes,
sign
correct.
Him and he could
Correct.
join that Angels bullpen. I'll go look at it. I feel like it's been a bit up and down this year. You don't want to draft for now, but at the same time, I made this argument when I was talking with Carlos Colaza, who's on the draft, the draft show tonight. I was like, when you draft a Bachman, yes, it's best if he can start, but the cost of acquiring 5 years of control of a pitcher like Bachman, if everything works, Bachman is similar. Again, I'll throw it out for the Indians fans listening to a James Karinchak at the back of a pen. The cost of acquiring a Karinchak with the amount of control is more expensive than the 10th overall pick in the draft or the 9th overall pick in the draft in terms of what you would pay in assets. So, if you're looking at it that way, yeah.
And that's why I said this year's in my mock draft, I literally said that he could be this year's, righty crochet. And that's why I linked him to the Giants. I thought he could do the similar thing for the Giants, but the Angels really need it. And so this is good. The Angels have been playing good baseball without Trout. You figure they get Trout back. There's a lot of reason to feel decent, I think, with the Angels. Also, you have Shohei Ohtani playing at a level that we've pretty much never seen before. So you get a guy that can help you now. And still, I'm not closing the door on the fact that he could be a starter down the line, but he can help you now and literally be, like you said, in a bullpen.
I mean, they got nothing behind Iglesias in terms of who's pitching well for them this year.
Exactly.
It's a disaster show of retreads. Like Claudio, Quintana, Guerrera. I mean, they moved Dylan Bundy, has had some pen appearances. Tony
100%.
Watson, Steve Chesick. I mean, it's a disaster show.
So it makes sense.
I think, if we do have any Angels fans listening, let us know in chat. But 100%, I think you'll see him pitch this year. And there we go, Rocker to the Mets.
Rocker to the freaking Mets, dude.
It's just a situation they did not think he'd be there. And
you're just like, he's in our lap. Like, okay.
Easy
and also
pick.
a point that Ryan Miller brought up, who's been active in the comments. Ryan, thank you for all the topics. I think you've brought up some really good points. And this is something I would love to see what you think there, Jeff. So Ryan saw my tweet kind of saying, like, doesn't everybody going under slot somewhat defeat the purpose, like I said to you? And he thinks it's more so a case of people getting their guy. And I think it's a juggle between the two. How much do you think is it so far from what we've seen today? How much is it them getting their guy versus more so saving that money while getting a guy that you still like? It doesn't mean it's your guy, but it's one of your guys, right? Which is it more of, in your opinion, the money saving or your guy that you just are way more high on than everybody else?
Well, I think Davis is definitely he's your guy. Everything
Davis
is a bonus.
is different. Davis is
I
different.
think Kauser is a bit of a savings. I think that is not, and I think Mazzucato is the same thing. I think Montgomery is your guy because again,
I agree.
If you're looking at just ceiling, so Brady House or Benny Montgomery both have questionable hit tools. Montgomery's got a higher power ceiling, and he's a better athlete.
He's a freak athlete.
So it's like that's getting your guy. I know some people might think this about Bachman, but again, I just tweeted it out. Like, Bachman is right now the Angels' second best reliever, and he hasn't even signed. That's not me being like over the top. It's just what he has. That's the truth of it. And yes, the record of those guys. You look what happened with Finnegan a few years ago with the Royals. It's not always the best of being that quick to the majors player, but he's my ADD dyslexia leads to so many misspellings. But yeah, I think most of these are not, but Mazzucato has to be underslot, and Kauser to me is definitely underslot. So, but yeah, I think a lot of it is just different evaluation.
Yeah, it's 2 and 2. So I would say great point from Ryan. And I think a couple of those instances, it was teams getting their guy, and then a couple it was a little bit of the other case, and that's what makes this draft so interesting. So we see Rocker fall to the Mets, and again, there's plenty of reason to be a little concerned about Rocker, but at the end of the day, you're getting Rocker at 10 and you're the New York Mets right now. You've got to be thrilled.
Yeah. I mean, he's just, like I said, he's a good chance to be a mid-rotation starter. He's a big, strong guy. Now, there are some people worried about mechanics, worried about like what's the ceiling there. I'm not sure how big the bonus demand is going to be. It is. I mean, he was supposed to be the favorite to be the top right-handed pitcher out of high school. Didn't come together for him. Ethan Hankins passed him. Then Ethan Hankins had his own issue, and now he's had Tommy John with the Indians. But Rocker, I understand the limitations, but he's 6'5", 245. He's the prototypical build. Yeah, he may not be the star, and I feel like a lot of what we're seeing is it's the blowback from. I mean, you could go back to our group chat. So we have our group chat on the Locked On MLB, and I remember when I made my way too early mock draft, and I did not put Rocker 1, and I was like, Rocker isn't going 1, and it's like a lot of people are like, you're crazy, and I'm like, Rocker is not that class.
I was with you.
Yeah, you were with me. We tend to agree on a lot of the stuff. I might make the draft, the podcast, our interaction sometimes a little too easy. But yeah, he was never the slam dunk, and now people are kind of bashing him too much for him not being what he was unfairly perceived to be.
I agree. I think it's a case of prospect fatigue too. 100%. And that's prospect fatigue is very real, and I think it's a perfect example. But as we wait for the next pick, Ryan Miller wants to know also who picks Andy Painter, and that was something I was talking about. So Painter went to my rival high school, and so I've been able to see him pitch a little bit, and also just talk to people that coached him, played with him, whatever. He's a great kid with ridiculous stuff. I mean, his fastball is top notch. The command is a little bit inconsistent, and there's plenty of reason to be concerned, right? But a lot of projectability there. Painter to me is a guy that I could see ending up going to the University of Florida if he doesn't get the right offer. But with all of these teams underslotting, I could see the right team coming up and ponying up here in the compensation round and offering him well over $1 million and potentially signing him away from UF there. Do you think that's where he ends up going here? Is one of the compensatory picks end up taking this kid from Calvary Christian High School in Fort Lauderdale?
Yeah, so my mock draft, I have him going to the Tampa Bay Rays. I have them going under slot, and then
that'd be such a Rays pick.
They have 2 picks back to back, so I just think he fits them. And I had the Rays taking Matt Nelson, the catcher from Florida State, who's a senior age, so they could go under slot with the higher pick, and then use that other money. Sorry, I was laughing at my. That is probably actually my uncle, not someone being. It's probably my Uncle Rick actually in chat making that joke about the tribe drafting for need, taking Dr. Fauci. Yes, the Indians have been very beat up. But if they take Nelson, they save that money and they roll it into Painter. And at Brady House to Washington, that's it's a solid fit. They typically go arms, but we talked about what do they like to take? They take sliding talent from the start of the year. At the start of the year, Cleo Watson in my way too early mock, I mocked him to the Indians. Sorry, I have a cat doing things they shouldn't, so it's just going to join me on the podcast here for a second. So Watson was more of a player, and I was aggressively high when I put Watson in the 20s. He was not viewed as that player. So Watson is not the player who is the one who is the fallen prospect. He's the rising prospect. Instead, the guy who has fallen in value would be Brady House, who was viewed at one point in time as the 1-1 player in this class. He was the high school player who has prospect fatigue. He's
I feel like
Kumar
everybody
Rocker.
was a 1-1 guy in this draft. Like, there was 9 different dudes that were 1-1 options in this draft. It's unbelievable. But House has otherworldly power.
Yes.
And you talk about the Nationals taking guys that fall. Again, I'm still like, I'm riding high from this future. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. But Cade Cavalli was unbelievable today. The most effortless 99 I've seen in a while. And when you talk about a guy that slid, fell right into the Nationals' lap, they take Cade Cavalli, and they're very happy with that, right? He's bordering top 3 or 4 pitching prospects in baseball, in my opinion, right now. So now you have a guy like House fall into your lap, not the college player, but still the ceiling of anybody, in this draft, really. So boundless power for Brady House, and a lot of potential there. The Nationals get a guy that is instantly going to slot into the top end of their system, and they needed bats, right? You look at their top prospects. It's like right-handed pitcher, right-handed pitcher, right-handed pitcher, like the whole thing. Like top 12 guys are all right-handed pitchers. So they finally mix a bat in there. I think this was a best-case scenario, or one of, for the Nationals here at number 12. So or at number 10. Sorry, I'm losing my mind. Or 11. Geez, 11.
Yeah.
So now we have number 12.
And the last bat they took in the first round, Carter Kaboom, shortstop turned third baseman.
And not even a good one there. So we go to 12. And you and I both have the same pick, which means we're both going to be wrong.
Yes.
But so what do you think is going to happen here?
Lions,
who's been here for a minute, he is a Mariners fan. So enlighten my guy.
So the Callis I talked about, Callis and I had the exact same picks up to here. We even both had Will Bednar to the Nationals, even though I admitted in mine that it's not the typical pick. Now Callis gave them forward here. Callis is, of course, the best connected person on the planet for this. He's the grandfather of it all. I don't want to put the Mel Kiper tag on him, because Callis, no knock on Kiper, but Callis is I feel like has a little bit more like respect in the industry than Kiper perceptibly seems to have. So Callis, like I said, he's untouchable. He has really good connection. I was talking to some people last night and we were discussing picks. I was talking to someone from a team discussing picks, and he's like, well, Callis says this. Like, this is someone who works for a team referencing Callis's mock as a source of information.
That's crazy. But why Ford? Cal Rowley's called up.
It's crazy from the perspective that they don't draft prep talent ever early. So it'd just be one of those things where you really believe in his ability as a catcher, I would think, because he has the potential to be something truly special there. If you heard us at the very top of the podcast, we talked about the fact that, in the last 3 years, there's been 2 catchers who every single year have shown up and played and been league average. And those are Real Muto and Grandal. And
catchers are terrible. Right now.
It's impossible to find someone who can both defend and hit and then stay healthy. It just doesn't happen. So if you think he can do that, and his athleticism gives him a greater chance to stay healthy as well. Mm-hmm. But I still think McLean or Frelick is more likely here.
I love McLean here. I think the Mariners have so much talent in the system, so much upside, and a lot of guys that are fitting that timeline, kind of like Connor Newcomb of Locked On Orioles was referring to, is that a lot of the Orioles prospects kind of fit that 2023, 2024 timeline. That's what you're looking at. I think the Mariners are the same thing, right? Julio Rodriguez, Jared Kelenic, those guys are all going to be up next year. You're looking at that timeline. George Kirby, Hancock, all of those guys you're hoping will be around that timeline. Cal Rowley's going to be up any day now. So that is somebody, that's his position there where I think you go college. But also, if you really believe in somebody, you end up going there. And as he says, there's a little bit of lack of infield talent in the Mariners system. Harry Ford could fall back on just about any position as well. And that's the big thing too, is the high school catcher stigma is 100% warranted, right? Track record,
they're riskier than pitchers.
The track record is atrocious, and that puts it lightly. So Harry Ford is a guy, he's a unicorn that basically is the type of player that you can really not have to worry about that. You can hedge that, right? Because he can fall back on, he's athletic enough to fall back on center field. My bad. Cal Rowley debuted today. I was traveling from South Bend, Indiana to Denver. And I totally missed Cal Rowley. I knew he was getting called up. I didn't know he was going to debut today. But That's exciting. I missed that. I'm going to have to catch up on that. But anyways, they've got their catcher. I really do believe in Cal Raleigh. I do. But that doesn't mean you don't pick a talented, freakish player like Harry Ford here. McLean, high floor. We talk about the hit tool, the versatility, all the things that he can do on the field. He can play outfield. He can play infield. He can play third. He's capable at short. He can play second base. A little bit of power there. I think he can sneak for 15, maybe a little bit more, and a good hit tool, above average speed. So where do you go here if you're the Mariners?
I mean, I go Khalil Watson if I'm here. Like, he is just.
Is he going to college? What's happening with Khalil Watson now?
He didn't have the biggest demand. I mean, I feel like if you roll this right, so I mean, because of there was viewed as that top 8, and he's the last player left. So the 3 players that knocked him out are Bachman, Mazzucato, and Colton Cowser. So he's still in this range. I think he could still get paid. I mean, it's just going to cost you most of that full freight. I mean, I wouldn't sleep on Philly with him either. They're a team that, Dave loves athletes. Typically, he likes outfield athletes. But, I mean, at some point, Watson's just too good. And if you're a team, here's the thing. Let's say he gets to, here's my dream scenario. Let's say my way too early mock is right. He gets to the Indians. A team like that who has the advantage of the competitive balance picks, they could just turn around and punt their competitive balance and their second round pick, and they could still afford to get him. I mean, the White Sox at 22, they got $3.3 million. Is $3 million enough to get him out of college? I would think so. Maybe it takes 3.5 to 4. We saw the White Sox, basically punt the rest of their draft to get Jared Kelly a year ago. So I could see that happening. Sorry, go
ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to do a quick reset before we bring in our next guest. So if you are joining us and you don't know us, I am Jeff Ellis, host of Locked On Indians. Before that, I was our guest a few minutes out, but I'll still do the reset. Locked On Indians. Formerly, I was at Scout and 24/7 as the lead draft and prospect analyst. I've been doing this stuff for about a decade. So it's a lot of fun for me, even though I am Locked On Indians. I pay a lot of attention. I've probably watched more college games than Indians games in the past month. That's a little secret between you, me, and the listening audience. But yeah, so that is my background. I swear I'm just not someone they pulled in off the street to talk about the draft. And Aram,
we have MLB Draft in your name. Like I said, your Twitter handle is sort of like Jeff MLB Draft. So that's when I was like, you got to join. You got to join this live because we literally have a guy whose name is Draft on Twitter. But myself, Locked On MLB Prospects, of course, that ties in with the draft. And admittedly, I've been watching probably more minor league games than big league games as I just fumbled Cal Raleigh's debut today. So now I got to go back and watch the reruns of the game. That's what I've been having to do now is sometimes I miss a big debut. I got to go back and rewatch it. But
I often do like the accelerated version. Oh, yeah. Seattle is taking Harry Ford.
Gosh, dang it.
There we go.
You're going to see my homerism come out a little bit there. Through and through, I mean, grew up a Marlins fan. Got to be objective. But, the Marlins were hoping for Harry Ford. So now
this
that
is the shockest. I mean, I don't know. Now I'm going to dig into my databases and stuff. I don't know if Jerry DiPoto going back to Anaheim, when is he taking a prep player ever? I mean, that I've always talked about if you follow someone and they have a specific type, how good that player must be to get that evaluator to go against type.
Exactly. And that's what what do we call Harry Ford, right? A unicorn. He really is a unicorn. So if you're going to go outside of your comfort zone, outside of your track record in terms of drafting, I'm going to draft that unicorn. And Harry Ford is that guy. And it makes sense. If you really believe in Harry Ford, and I think you have to be nuts to not believe in him, that is the pick. And the Mariners, to me, might have just gotten one of the better picks of the draft so far. I think that to get Harry Ford there, I like it. I'm going to be interested to see what the value is and how much he gets. I think it's going to be right on slot. I'm curious what you think in that regard. But now the Marlins and some of the other teams that are coming up, a lot has changed. So Seattle gets a very good high upside guy and a great system now has as much upside as any already and just gets even better. The Phillies, I had Montgomery going there, so a lot changes. The Giants, I had Bachman, he's off the board. And the Brewers, I had Wicks, he's still there. And the Marlins, I had Harry Ford. So 3 of those 4 guys are gone. And there's still plenty of talent on the board is there a world where Khalil Watson continues to fall, or does Khalil Watson end up with maybe the Phillies here with this next selection, or the Giants? The
obvious
Giants,
place would be the Reds. They have all of those picks. So if there's a team where if his bonus is a little bit higher, that might be the spot.
So you're thinking that someone maybe overslots Watson here to try to get him to fall to them?
Yes.
So the Marlins could do that too. The Marlins have the 31st pick. So that's going to be a little bit
because it's what Will Taylor. Sorry, I'm stepping on your feet here, but it's like Will Taylor and Watson are kind of that last of those tiers of guys who were rumored to be like top 25 athlete prep types, right?
Exactly. So I look, if the Marlins get Khalil Watson, that's a great pick for them. But they need to potentially use that money there and go reverse and go overslot. But what are you looking at then now if you are the Phillies? Because maybe teams behind, maybe the Marlins are calling Watson right now and saying, hey, we'll give you more than whatever the hell the Phillies and the Giants and the Brewers are offering you. I would not want Watson going to the Phillies if I'm the Marlins. The Phillies need some help. They have Stott. I really do like Stott. But in terms of their infield projection, they could use some help there in that system as well. They've whiffed on some recent picks. The Giants, they could go any direction. And the Brewers, they need some talent too, and they could use some infield talent. They have Turang, but I'm not that excited about him, honestly. They need some more upside bats as well.
So my sleeper to the Phillies was Andrew Painter. So we'll have to see if with Montgomery off the board. I'm getting some reverb.
From me?
I'm not sure. Just hearing my voice twice. Sorry, throws me off. There we go. It's gone. Thank goodness. I hate my voice, as I think we all do. Not necessarily hate my voice, but hate our own voices. But yeah, no, my sleeper here was Andrew Painter. And I think if I pull up my way too early mock, he was who I mocked to them. So, again, this is just knowing Dave Dombrowski. He likes super athletic outfielders. So maybe Will Taylor makes sense. But he also likes projectable big-bodied pitchers.
And that's exactly what just happened.
And if you think that I knew it and I'm just BSing, you can go look at, again, I'll pimp my site, MLB MLBDraftNow.blogspot.com. Yes, it is a blog spot. After 24/7 got rid of baseball, I just decided I was going to do my own thing. So you can go see. I do have that's in the mock right now with him being the fallback to the Phillies. So I'm now going to, out of curiosity, go see if I do remember correctly. I know at multiple points I'd mocked him to the Phillies. He just fit the Dave Dombrowski approach.
And I like it. I like the projectability there. I like what he has tools-wise, but are you going with that volatile of a pick there with all of the talent on the board? Again, I like Painter, local kid.
Not for me, but yeah.
I just don't see it. I don't see it there. There's so much talent on the board. The Phillies, they could use help in just about any area in their system. I'm going best player available, and I'm sorry, it's not Andrew Painter.
No, I'm willing to sell my second and third round picks. I'm going Khalil Watson tomorrow. I'm running Khalil Watson up there. I believe 100% in him. I think he's an excellent value. I'm willing to come around, like I said, in round two, give me Nico Cavadas. Let me take the Notre Dame kid and give him like $200,000 because I don't think he's going to cost much, and then roll that all over. Painter he was my. I had Bubba Chandler higher. I had Frank Mazzucato higher. I kind of like the Mazzucato pick more than I like the Painter pick.
That says a lot. That says a lot. Well, we're gonna get my man Ryan Finkelstein in here from Locked On Mets, who should be pretty pumped about his pick. Of course. There's no way, Ryan, welcome. There's no way you woke up this morning saying Kumar Rocker is going to be a Met. There's no shot. So how are we feeling right now?
Feeling great. I think a lot of Mets fans, you're talking about this draft, a lot of the casual fans really only knew two names. So the fact that the Mets got one of the two names, everyone's thrilled right now. And when you think about this farm system and the way Brody Van Wagenen just purged it of pitching the last couple of years, to get a college arm that comes in that can rise to the system quick, I love the pick.
And also, a really important note on the Mets, too, is that their offensive prospects have really been looking good. I just saw Francisco Alvarez hit a laser beam today, by the way.
Yeah.
He looks fantastic. But also, Brett Beatty has been swinging it great. Mark Vientos is on fire, and we've talked about Mark Vientos a lot in the past. And I'm feeling good about that one because I told you, I was like, that guy's on the fringe of my top 100. You just got to give me a little bit more on the output. He's giving it. He's hitting over 400 in his last dozen games. So they've got the bats. I really think they do with that system, and I'm sure they're going to get some interesting options later in the draft. You get a really exciting arm here that should – there's some questions around him, as there is with any big, powerful right-handed arm. But to get him at 10, again, our fans just going nuts right now.
Oh, I mean, it's funny because I've been at work, so I've been trying to keep tabs, following what you guys are doing. So I'm just kind of getting my first glimpse of it, and everyone's thrilled right now. And you look at now the Mets have Matt Allen, they got JT Ginn, and they got Rocker. Finally, they have some pitching to fall back on here after giving up guys like, over the last couple of years, Justin Dunn, Anthony Kay, Simeon Woods Richardson killed me to lose him. So lose all those arms, and now you're finally get some back. And it's also just nice to see that there's no worrying about paying some of these prospects or anything like that with Steve Cohen. All that's kind of gone away now that the Mets have a new owner. So, yeah, it's still cloud nine with the Mets.
Yeah, I honestly think the Mets could, if they had to, they'll just take the penalties for going over the bonus pool. I could see the Mets doing something like they don't care. It seems like he just doesn't care, and that's
I'm pretty sure Steve Cohen paid like the biggest fine in the history of like hedge fund, whatever it is, SEC. I think he paid like a $1.6 billion fine at one point. So yeah, I don't think there's any fine that Major League Baseball could put on Steve Cohen that would scare him.
Yeah, and that's good news. And I think the Mets, it's going to be interesting to see the rest of the way. But to get Kumar Rocker, man, I mean, and when you look at the draft, right, the Phillies get, and again, I like the tools and what he can boast, but Andrew Painter, a volatile high school arm, goes a couple picks after the Mets getting Kumar Rocker. I mean, when you're comparing in the NL East and looking at that, I mean, that's got to feel really damn good. And he slots in now to a Mets system that is really starting to rise quickly. And depending on what the financials are, well, what do you think moving forward now in the rest of the draft, second round, third round? They probably were not looking to go pitcher in the first. So this probably shifts a lot of things. What do you think is the biggest need for the Mets moving forward now that you kind of had a pitcher fall into your lap? You're not complaining about it. But if your initial plan was not to go that way, which it doesn't seem like it was, where are you going now?
Honestly, I love adding pitching right now because, like you mentioned, there's been a lot of hitters this year that have stepped up. I think outfield is a real area of need for the Mets right now. You're talking about Mauricio, Beatty, Vientos. All these guys are infielders. Even Jalen Palmer's having a really nice season as an infielder as well. So I think maybe getting an outfielder right now, I guess the only prospect I can think of that is really kind of widely regarded is Khalil Lee. And, early on this season, he didn't look great in his first taste of big league action. Obviously, that came out of injuries and way too soon. But I think outfield is definitely a big area of need right now.
Absolutely. And that's why I was thinking Frelick. That was the guy I thought would go there. So, Jeff, who are some outfield options in that next pick range for the Mets?
Well, before I get there, I do have to point out it is kind of humorous because Rocker is likely going to cost a lot. So this is actually going to likely be a draft very similar to what Brodie Van Wagenen did, where the first 3 picks were prospects, and then you have to punt some later picks, do a lot of senior signs. So they might actually end up doing a very similar approach to the last front office in terms of just how this is going to be approached. Round 2 outfielders, can I throw out maybe the most interesting one?
Yeah. You're the Mets. What are you doing right now?
So there's a player in round 2, maybe round 3, and I want to make sure you get his name right. Denzel Clark from Cal State Northridge. I was talking with Sean before the podcast. I promised I'd give some Canada love.
Canadian love.
So if you're not familiar with Denzel Clark, he's 6'5" and a plus runner. His mother was an Olympic athlete in 1984, and his cousins are the Naylor brothers. So he needs some development. Cal State Northridge, not the biggest program, excuse me. But if you want to take an interesting gamble, again, good bloodlines in terms of baseball and just athletics in general. Huge kid, runs, like I said, plus runner at 6'5", natural power, and had like a 16% walk rate this year at Cal State Northridge with like a 22% strikeout rate. So he also fits some analytical models. He could be an interesting player. And then just, maybe someone like Christian Franklin, the Arkansas kid, if he sticks around.
He's got upside. He's got
really
upside.
like his upside.
Volatile for sure, but he's got upside. And
yeah, so there's a lot of kind of that level. But yeah, those are, like I said, Denzel Clark to me is just fascinating. So I'm going to bring him up every time I can, just because the whole package there to me is unicorn-like.
Well, and the good news for the Mets here is, right, you don't get the outfielder as early, but after last year, there's a lot of really good college bats because of last year's shortened draft. You could get a bunch of potential high floor and still relatively high ceiling college outfielders that might go second, third round, that range. And the Mets, again, I loved what the Mets did in 2020. You talk about being able to get JT Ginn, some of the moves that they made to be able to be creative and flexible there. I really think that the Mets could end up killing this draft again, and you get Rocker falling into your lap. I'm going to be interested to see how they allocate the rest of the bonus pool money, because Arthur brings up a good point. Yes, they can go over, but once you go over more than 5%, you're going to have to potentially forfeit picks. So at that point, you got to figure out exactly what you want to do. You can go over a little bit, but you got to tread a little bit lightly.
Bad news, Aram Watson's going to the Giants.
God, this is not fun. This is fun, but not fun for the Locked On Marlins side. Locked On MLB Prospects side of me is having a great time. Locked On Marlins side of me not having a great time. But the Mets, they're having a good time. And now what? How many more picks till the Mets go again?
I have to, let's see, which one of my screens do I have? I have 3 screens in front of me, just so everyone knows.
You got the super monitors going. I'm in a hotel in Denver.
You got a war room going, right?
Draft tracker on the right. I've got my big board over here on the left, and my mock, so I can reference my own stuff.
Because I want to try to pair it up with your big board and see who you think's available there. But also, can we talk about Khalil Watson going to San Francisco?
At 46.
46. Okay. Well, first, while we have Ryan here, can you explain, maybe who you think in that range? You gave a couple names, but are there any names that you think could fall there from your big board that you're a little bit higher on that might still fall to that 46 range?
So the 46 range is kind of a range of guys where I'm lower than, like I have Ethan Wilson, Colson Montgomery. 46 is Trey Sweeney, who's probably going to be gone.
Oh, if they got Trey Sweeney, they'd be in business.
Jay Allen. I like, I have Carson Williams, the shortstop from Torrey Pines High School, who the industry is lower on than the league. Like I was told Carson Williams has a chance to go in the first round. Okay, so here's maybe a name, but it's another pitcher. Kai Bush, the left-handed pitcher from St. Mary's. Ryan Bliss, the shortstop / second baseman from Auburn. And Tommy Mace, Florida. Are kind of the players in that range.
They go back-to-back pitcher.
Who could be interesting, who could be around there is Adrian Del Castillo, who was viewed as a potential top 10 pick. Didn't quite perform the way as hoped, and because he has limited power, kind of slid. I mean, he's got defensively, he's not even as good as Davis, but good ball to bat skills, things like that.
I think he's a corner outfielder, frankly, but I like the swing from the left side. I think it plays, and that's the thing is there's a unique amount of potential players that the Mets can go with in the outfield, and the Mets got a lot of talent right now, though. And for the first hour of this live show, I was always ending it with better days ahead. Well, you got good days going right now, and now the Mets just got a huge boost in the system. Hopefully Kumar Rocker can start to put it together. Last thing I wanted to leave you with, Ryan, what do you think? I mean, obviously you have the Jacob deGroms of the world, but I don't think you can take credit for developing Jacob deGrom. I think only God can take credit for developing Jacob deGrom. What do you think about the Mets' ability to develop pitching and in your experience, and what do you think that means for a guy like Kumar Rocker?
I think that it's hard to judge that because this is a completely new regime that's brought in a lot of new people. But the past regime did not do a good job. I mean, even just look at some of their discarded players that are in Seattle now, like Chris Flexen and Rafael Montero's not having a great year. But there's been a lot of times when the Mets would rush players and not develop them properly. So I can't say that they have this great track record. It's not like Cleveland. But you would hope that with more resources, the Mets will get a lot better at developing players moving forward, and Rocker will be coming up in that regime. So you would hope it gets better now.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a good test because we know what Rocker's capabilities are, but we also know that there's some things that need to be ironed out. So it's going to be fun to watch. I mean, they've got guys like Matt Allen and some other prospects that, again, it'll be a good test for them. They've done a good job on the offensive side of things. I think you got to give them credit there because there's been several names now that have just really unlocked a lot more this year. We'll see if they can do it on the pitching side. But Mets are in first place, and now you add Kumar Rocker to the fold. It's a good day to be the host of the Locked On Mets. And Ryan, thanks for taking time to join us on the show. And congratulations on Kumar Rocker, who's probably the biggest name, like you said. Mets fans got to be amped.
Like I said, this is the one name that's actually going to get me people to listen to the show tomorrow. So I'm happy with Kumar Rocker in a lot of ways.
Exactly. So congratulations on that front. And Ryan, thanks for spending some time with us here on Draft Day.
Yeah, man. Have a good one.
So as Ryan Miller's pointing out, and I think you're someone that's going to be able to talk about this a little bit better because you got the comment section going crazy with maybe it's not Khalil Watson.
Yeah.
What do we got going on here? What's going on?
It
Jeff?
may not be Watson. The report might be bad and it's not surprising. San Francisco is highly conservative, so going.
That's why it was shocking to me. I'm thinking, that is not a San Francisco move. Again, like Bednar or one of those guys, one of these advanced college arms. I could even see them going Hoagland. But apparently Robert Murray says it's Will Bednar. That is not a bad pick. I like it. I mean, Bednar, when I was able to just see that guy throw, whether it was, in the postseason with college, seeing him in person, I was floored. I really think he was right there with everybody. In terms of what he has with the breaking ball, his ability to locate, I thought he was pretty damn dominant. And you had him higher than a lot of other people did, and for good reason. I was really sold on what I saw from him, and he boosted his stock, I would say, down the stretch quite a bit.
Yeah, he's really interesting from the perspective. He wasn't even supposed to be a starter. Like, this is all kind of a surprise. He was supposed to be a reliever, ended up in that role, performed very well, has arguably the best slider from the college group. He is old. He's a draft-eligible sophomore, a little bit older for the class. I'll be curious to see, how he develops. I think there's a better than average chance he ends up in the bullpen as well. I was just, I got distracted because I was reading through some things about Khalil Watson's slide. And, to get off topic here, I'm a little bit annoyed because the Khalil Watson, before the year began, the talk was like, this is a fiery guy. Yeah, he'll yell at his teammates. He'll yell at the opposing team. He wants to win. Like, he is. And now there's apparently someone, I didn't even see it. I don't know where it is, but people were reporting apparently there was some stuff about character concerns in somebody's mock. And I feel like, when I wrote up about Watson, I talked about he's a fiery player, and there's going to be people who like it, and there are going to be people who hate it. And I don't know if that's tied to the character concerns. I have to go do some digging. I have not had anyone express character concerns to me once with Watson. So I just want to take that moment and get on my soapbox and be like, this is a little annoying if that is the case, or if that is what is causing him to slide. I think it's really unfair to that kid.
Yeah. I don't want to get, there's a lot to unpack there. I haven't heard anything on that front either. And I love
people
the way
love
he plays.
to talk.
Yeah, right. It's like, I
will always
scoop
let
on
you
this
know.
guy.
Yeah,
but to say, okay, yeah, he wants to win really badly, he's fiery, that can be channeled in a good way. We're talking about a kid, right? I know we're talking about the MLB Draft, and this is a guy that's going to make millions of dollars, and there's a lot of components there. But he's also still a teenager, right? A lot is going to change in that regard. As long as he's not legitimately having egregious character issues. We've seen players with much worse, with blatant character issues, get selected in the top 10. I think that's a selective, caring thing. And I don't really love that component of things. And that's just not – I don't think that's fair to him either. And we'll see how this unfolds. This should be really interesting to see how this continues. And now, what do you think that means?
I don't know. I have to be honest. I don't know where this, because the talk was that he was a potential 1-1 even today. It's kind of ridiculous that, and everything about him has been, he's, I'm not necessarily like he's a great character player, but I've literally had nothing other than the fact that, he's fiery, that he's that type of guy. So, I feel like there's going to be some team that just views the value as too good. He is supposed to go to NC State. So it's not a high end program. NC State's very good, but it's not like he's going to one of the programs that's traditionally top 10 every single year. NC State has had some fantastic talent over the years. Do not get me wrong, but it's not. We know what those top tier programs are. I think there's still a chance to sign him, and I think a smart team will. Like, again, the physical tools are just not going to be compared. No one else is going to really compare to him value-wise at this point in the draft.
I agree. So that being said, you think that's a pick that the Brewers make here at 15? Both of us had arms going to the Brewers here, but they could use a jolt, and Khalil Watson's a jolt.
Yeah, I would like it. I think it's very much a good call if they went out and get him. But I, at the same time, think that, they're they did take Bryce Terang, but they marched to the beat of their own drummer. They're such an analytical, heavy team that I would bet on someone model friendly for them here.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do. I think that Wicks made a lot of sense for them. I like Wicks as just a pitchability guy, lefty, good shot to be middle of the rotation type of arm. I don't know if you go – I like Hoglund too. And again, I think those guys are kind of different versions of each other, lefty, righty. Hoglund's probably got a higher ceiling, but Wicks has that Bugs Bunny changeup. I really do like either option here. Do you see a scenario where they go outside of those two guys? I just don't know if they – I could see them going safe, like you said, like the model pick.
The sleeper I think here is Tyler Black from Wright State. If you like models, he's your guy. Sean's running this in the background. Another Canadian to bring up and mention, but Wright State is. You could argue in terms of recent production that they're like at an NC State level for amount of high picks. You're the Marlins guy. You could talk about Peyton Burdick, who came from there. They're doing Sean Murphy with Oakland. They had Seth Gray go very high to the Twins. They're doing as good a job as any mid-major is doing in terms of development and production.
Oh, there's an unbelievable amount of talent coming out of Wright State. And even the guys that aren't pro, like legit pro prospects, they just rake. They from top to bottom, the team always rakes. I think the Marlins have to go Watson, right? And I don't think they're deterred by fiery personalities, right? Jazz Chisholm, well, he's a fiery personality, but you know what? He's a guy that plays the game hard, and he, from all accounts, I've been able to talk to the guy. I've had plenty of conversations with people around it. Everybody loves Jazz. You know what you're getting. You're getting a guy who loves that he's Jazz Chisholm. Don't get me wrong. But you know what? He's the first guy that's going to go head first to try to win the ball game for you. He's a good teammate. He just also loves being Jazz Chisholm. That's okay. That's okay. You know what? Whatever it takes, baseball is a miserably difficult game where you're going to fail a lot. And if that's what it takes to stay afloat, that's fine. And Jazz, all I've heard is nothing but positive things about what the impact and the excitement and the energy he brings to the clubhouse.
We missed the obvious one here. Sal Frelick. We just forgot that he was still there.
And I compared him to Garrett Mitchell earlier. Yeah. Not quite the ceiling, but that same kind of profile for them of a guy that is a good chance to be able to make an impact for them at the major league level relatively quickly. And I just saw Garrett Mitchell in person. I was floored actually by how good he looked.
Yeah, it's Mitchell just couldn't stay healthy, and then there was always going to be the issue. Not that it's an issue for me, but teams are going to be concerned about diabetes. That's just the truth of the matter. It's one of those things where it got mentioned every single time. And again, this isn't me speaking; it's just what I hear. So he had that to overcome.
I was hearing the same things too. I wasn't. I was like, I can't speak to that. I don't know.
Outdated thought. outdated thought processes. I mean, it's essentially what it comes down to.
It's 2021. I know we got a long way to go when it comes to diabetes, and I hope we do. And that could be an entirely different conversation. But you can play baseball and have diabetes. You can do that. And I think he's proving that. I've talked to guys that faced him, that played against him, and everybody that's played against him in high A right now has said he stands out as one of the most impressive players in this league, and he shouldn't be here, kind of thing. So he should be in Double A rather
such a
quickly.
great athlete.
Yeah, great athlete, great hit tool, and more power than people think.
Oh, yes. He just had to grow into it and get an opportunity. I mean, he's one of those players that the lack of 2020 hurt maybe as much as anyone.
Yeah, and the difference here is Frelick doesn't have that ceiling, right? No. But Frelick in a place like Milwaukee, he's going to sneak 15 home runs out of that, I think. I don't think that's crazy, right? I mean,
no.
And he's got great bat-to-ball skills. He's an above-average runner. He is – and we talk about makeup and stuff like that. Frelick gets the highest marks for the way he approaches the game, his work ethic, everything that he brings to the table.
Enjoying the Chiron down there for you.
Will Aram's Khalil Watson dreams be crushed? Absolutely. They absolutely will. I'm fully prepared for that. That's going to be fun. We'll see. But I like the pick for the Brewers. I think you can really have a good, confident feeling of your outfield consisting of Christian Yelich, who not having a great year, but he's Christian Yelich, Garrett Mitchell, and Sal Frelick. I think in 2 years, is that crazy?
No, and Frelick he's the highest rated player left on my board. Yeah, so so that's a lie. Watson's highest, then Frelick. I just keep forgetting Watson's even there because it's so unbelievable. But you have a situation where you're getting a top 10 talent in my book, and just talk about Frelick as an athlete. This is a guy who was the Gatorade All-American quarterback in Massachusetts. Now he's 5'8", so that's why he didn't have really a future at that playing quarterback. Just don't tell Kyler Murray. Sorry, Oakland fans. And then he was also an all-state hockey player. Now, I think hockey actually has a lot more translation value to baseball than people would think. I played both, and I think the nice thing with hockey is it requires such an internal body center of balance, and knowing where your center of balance is and being able to constantly kind of stay in yourself. Like, you have to, if you're going to lean over or anything else, especially as you're learning the game, it's a disaster. So you very quickly kind of are able to find your balance.
100%.
And how much of finding your balance is exactly what there are to hitting and the repeating the swing and everything else. And I feel like there's the value in that. There's the value in that high-level hockey player who had to find his balance and is able to and knows that.
No doubt. So can we talk about now, too, because I totally agree with that. Yeah. I really like that floor. So who are the Marlins going to take to disappoint me?
To disappoint you.
If they take a pitcher, I'm going to lose my mind. Let me preface with that. I will lose my mind if they take a pitcher.
Sorry, my cat is trying to ruin the stream. He keeps getting himself caught in my microphone cord for no apparently good reason. I tried to pull mine out. So
thing, right? That's a total.
He's just being a bit of a jerk. I won't fall to swearing. Jordan Wicks, Ty Madden. Ty Madden will probably be the pick. I'm not a big Madden guy, but I wouldn't look. Okay.
I could deal with Ty Madden, but I can tell you right now, Marlins fans will be so mad because the Marlins have not done a good job of developing offensive talent. Outside of Jazz Chisholm right now in the big leagues, and I don't think they can take credit for Jazz. Look at their prospects. Look at how they're doing offensively. I mean, it's
Burdick,
not.
Isn't he still? Is he the one success story?
He's hitting for power. He's hitting 207, but he's hitting for power. There's a lot of projection there, but. I don't think Marlins fans will be very happy if an arm goes here. I like Ty Madden. If it's going to happen, Ty Madden is cool with me. Don't take Jordan Wicks. I like Wicks, but you're the Marlins here. You have so much starting pitching talent. Look at the major leagues. You honestly don't even have enough room if you're looking at the long-term, projection here. Sandy Alcantara, Pablo Lopez. You have Edward Cabrera knocking on the door. You just drafted Max Meyer. You hit a home run with Jake Eater. Both those guys were at the Futures game today. You have so many prospects that are throwing well. Sixto Sanchez just got surgery, but he's going to be back. How are you going to be able to look at your fan base and say, yeah, I know our offensive prospects are struggling and we have 9 legitimate pitching prospects, but we wanted a 10th. Can you really do that here? I don't know.
I mean, to me, you can't because you got Watson on the board. Like it'd be silly. And I'm not a Madden guy. I'm not a Wix guy. Those are both guys I'm significant. So another one of my little rants here is that someone does not want them to take Watson. There you go.
Yeah,
maybe he's a fan of another team.
Yeah, it's got to be a fan of another team because I know every Marlins fan is praying for Watson.
Because Jordan Wicks, it's the best pitch, I believe, is the changeup. And I kind of went through and I looked at it. It's like the top changeup. Yankees need to get.
Yeah, Watson. Yankees need to get Watson. There you go. Okay, that's fine. But I think the Yankees are going to get the quarterback, the kid going committed to Clemson. But
Bubba Chandler.
I'm all over Bubba Chandler there. But like you said, the Marlins need to go Watson, and I'm hoping that's the case. And I just don't really know how you can – like Jake Eater, for example. Jake Eater's better than what Jordan Wicks is going to be, right, at this point. So why are you going with a guy that is not better than the steal you had from the 4th round in this past draft?
Was Jake Eater at Florida?
Jake Eater is a Florida kid, also from Calvary, where Andrew Painter's from, but he was a Vanderbilt reliever.
Where Vanderbilt struggled to develop. Okay, so early indications are that Watson's fall will stop at Miami, but this is from Eric Longenhagen. But early when San Francisco was on the clock, that was also the case. I'll stop short of totally confirming it, but it is what teams picking behind Miami think will happen. So people are thinking, sorry, I'm just doing this because my cat's being a jerk and I don't want him getting into and rooting this podcast. So you're getting additional stuff. So our Yankees fan is a Clemson fan, so that works for him.
Well, so the crazy thing about Clemson, by the way, is that Dabo Swinney might lose 2 recruits.
Yeah,
to the MLB draft between Taylor
and a quarterback.
Yeah, a slot receiver and a quarterback.
And I think, it's going to be interesting. Taylor, there's been so much smoke around him. I don't know what's true and what isn't, but everyone seems to think he's going to go. Maybe there's a chance Chandler gets to campus, though. I don't know. I thought it was interesting. Keith Law had a great tweet earlier, just to give credit, that there were 3 high school pitchers in the top 13 picks. In 2019 and 2020, there were combined 0 high school pitchers in the top 13 picks. So are teams going to brace out? Are they going to go out and get Chandler? Or do we already see kind of the guys go, and now it's going to be a bet? And it's, is it Chandler? Is it Solometo? Who's the next guy? Watson will be expensive. Bubba Chandler is good. I have him in the top 20 prospects. He's my number 2 prep arm in the class for me. Mazzucato was 3rd, Painter 4, I want to say. But Watson could be expensive, but at the same time, he's going to be worth it. Even if you have to go out and, like I said, if they have to punt their 2nd rounder to get that money, I would have to see.
There's Watson.
Yep,
There's
it's already
Khalil Watson.
Great pick. Marlins just might have won the draft.
The Marlins may have just won the draft.
You can save that and use that later if you want.
So we'll bring in the host of the Locked On Marlins.
Okay, let's just give it a second.
Come on in here and talk. There we go. And I'm thrilled. This is a huge pick for the team. Watson was one of my favorite prospects in this draft, and they need offensive help. They can develop this guy. Hopefully. But I think he's a dude that you don't have as much risk. I think that swing plays, power plays when it comes to ability to just make consistent contact. I like it. I don't know if he sticks at short, but Jazz Chisholm could be your shortstop in the future. You could play Watson.
I think he sticks.
You think he stays?
I don't have any doubt about his ability to play short.
Yeah,
he's the Twitch king of this class. Like, I
agree.
He is all, it's because we sometimes get into various degrees of stuff. Foot speed.
And you can teach a good athlete to play shortstop usually.
And anyone who tells you he's not going to hit for power, I don't believe. I mean, this
out of their minds
speed for days. His
out of their minds.
He's small, but small players can hit for power. It's about swing.
Again, look at Jazz Chisholm. Look at
Jose Ramirez of the Indians, like a four-time MVP top 3 finisher.
Yeah,
and he's 5'8", if that.
Is Bubba Chandler a lefty or righty? Both.
Righty.
Both.
Both. Well, what is he? He.
I think is a hitter or is a pitcher? Because a hitter is both. Pitcher, he's a righty.
Yeah.
So the guy's just a freak.
Yeah.
But now the Marlins, they go over slot, right? So no doubt they're going over slot here, right? So
yeah.
What do you do now at 31? You're going to have to save some cash,
if you can get Matt Michalewski, the Fordham kid, that's ideal. I mean, that's the kid, that's the target. For those who don't know, I mean, I understand Fordham, the last first rounder they had was Pete Harnish. If you don't remember Pete Harnish, that's fine. He barely pitched when I was a child. And if you missed the top of the show, I turned 40 today. So it's been a while. But yeah, they went out and got, he's a senior who his stuff really ticked up this year. Small level competition, left-handed pitcher up to 95, 96. Maybe he's a reliever long-term, chance for a starter. But if you can get him and you can get him significantly under slot, which is the thought process at 31, you could get almost all of your savings. I need to pull up and see exactly the value of that pick at 31. But I mean, you got to think he might cost like 500,000. I mean, high end 500,000 is my. So if you can get him there, like I said, sorry, I'm just pulling. That's a 2.3. So you take 1.8 essentially, you roll that over, and then you're at 5.5. I would think 5.5 get you Watson.
So you're thinking right around 500,000 is the range that you're looking at potentially at 31.
I mean, I think maybe lower, maybe higher. I'm never the best in money, I'll be honest, but I think 5.5 would definitely get you in there. I would think you can maybe even go up to $1 million. I think if you can get about $5 million, you're probably good. So even if they go a little bit higher and get a player around $1 million there, you're good, and then you don't have to worry about punting, or you can just take a little bit off of every pick. The fact that they have those two relatively high picks gives them ways.
A little bit more flexibility. So because it's 31 and then it's 50. What is it? 50.
They got 52.
Okay, yeah, you could get creative there. Matt McClain of Cincinnati. That's interesting.
Yeah, I feel like that.
He's got a lot of a little bit of Jonathan India in him, right?
Yeah, and he's like, if he doesn't break his finger, I think he's a top 10 pick. Like, he was ascending at the right time. I had him 12th, so it's a value pick. At points, I had him like borderline top 10. He's kind of in that lump of players that are had around the same value. But it's a good pick by the Reds. He's more of probably a second baseman or a center fielder. I know he was like a shortstop out of high school, played a little bit of there in college as well. But maybe though, I think he'll be around slot as well. A lot of people thought that might be a Will Taylor or a Bubba Chandler landing spot, and it's not. It's not. So we'll see what they do. But I don't hate that pick, but it's interesting.
So a funny joke. So somebody said, Aram, would Peter Apple be happy with Bubba Chandler? So Peter Apple is my co-founder at justbaseball.com, and he is a huge Yankees fan. And our joke, because the Yankees have a terrible track record of drafting, right? Terrible track record of drafting over the last few years overall. And I always joke that they look for the wrong things in guys like Anthony Segor. It was a guy that could catch with both hands. Like, who cares? Like, he could throw with both arms, whatever, but he can't hit. But the funny thing about a guy like Bubba Chandler is that he just has like all of these crazy tools too. Like, he's just so uniquely athletic, but like skilled. And I feel like the Yankees have an infatuation with just guys that have bizarre but unique skill sets as well.
Yeah, and they also love their New Jersey prep talent. So like Anthony Solometo is one of those guys. But with Gunnar Hoagland on the board, that's been the guy that's kind of the quote-unquote Yankees target, if you believe. But so far tonight, all of our quote-unquote targets have not been true. So we'll have to see if that is the case or not. But yeah, it's been a crazy night so far. I did not see a world where Matt McClain would still be here. He's going to be, and he is the pick. I'm trying to track now and see like who is my highest rated player available still. That's like my next. So it's Michael McGreevy from Santa Barbara.
I had McGreevy going 29 to the Dodgers. But I don't know if he falls there.
Yeah, I have Josh Baez, who I talked about earlier. I'm high, and then I have Will Taylor, Gunnar Hoagland, and Bubba Chandler. Those are my top five. Max Muncy is the sixth highest of my best available.
So can we talk a little? Can we talk a little bit about Baez, because you touched on him earlier, and we talk about the tantalizing tools, right? It's a 70 grade arm, right? Or 70 raw power, 60 arm, a lot of really special skills that he has. But the hit tool is a little bit of the question. But from what I've heard on Baez is that he is a baseball rat, like in the best way possible. Is just a hard worker times a million. And when you are making a pick there on guys like that, yes, you're looking at the projection. Yes, you're looking at those things too. But if there's some question around his hit tool and things like that, doesn't that hedge it a little bit when you have a guy that is just a high-end makeup baseball rat that's going to grind? When he has the God-given stuff that you can't teach, I'm willing to bet that he's going to figure it out on just the ability to put the bat on the ball, at least in a semi-consistent basis. The rest of the tools are so good that he doesn't even have to be a high-end average hitter. That is something that I think is interesting. I had him going 25 to the A's, and I think that's a bit higher than most had him. Do you think that's outrageous, or is that somewhere we could see him going?
Just to kind of go back earlier, I talked about the idea of like Will Benson types, and I know for the most part, you look at Will Benson, and he's been, he was Rule 5 eligible. No one took him for a reason. He has struggled until this year, and this is a kid who, you want to talk about the baseball rat, physical tools, like working their tail off nonstop. It would have been very easy for Will Benson, who got, a 7-figure signing bonus, to pack it in and just not keep pushing. Earlier this year, again, I do Locked On Indians, and the Indians have a giant hole in center field. So I went and I looked up double and triple A, people who have played center field on Fangraphs in the upper minors, and I had them rated by runs created plus. Far and away, Edward Olivares of the Royals was the number one guy. Will Benson is fourth for a guy who never had an OPS over 700 before this year, never had a runs created plus, I believe, over a full season over 100, fourth best. So sometimes, it does take longer, and sometimes it is harder. But when you have that work rat mentality, when you are that guy, eventually it can turn around as long as you keep pushing. And that could be the case. We obviously none of these players have hit that adversity yet, but that's just to go back to something we talked about. It's one of those things where we've already have an example of that. Will Taylor is the other Clemson.
Yeah, Will Taylor and Bubba Chandler. Will Taylor is probably the better. I don't know who's the better football player.
Taylor,
nasty slot receiver. But
I think they're both 3 stars though.
Yeah, they're both 3 stars.
Will Taylor is the better one.
But I don't think Dabo Swinney's losing sleep over losing either of those two guys, but it's just a crazy fun fact that Dabo Swinney could lose 2 players to the MLB draft. That's always a fun little component. But I'm sure Clemson's baseball coach is a little bit more concerned about losing both those guys. But that's what happens. And now we're looking at this draft, and there's not that many guys with a huge risk, not that many guys that are threatening to go to college. It seems like it's pretty clear cut both ways, but somebody that I feel like is just fallen off the radar, and I know it's because of the swing and miss issues, but he was a guy that he got discussion for 1-1. Everybody did, but Judd Fabian obviously fell a lot, but where's Judd Fabian going in this draft? The power is I would put as with anybody in this draft, right? So where does Judd go at some point here?
He's interesting because for as much as we were quick to kind of forget about him, and I say we, I mean the industry, he's just an odd player from the regard where he didn't play well against the bad competition, but man, he really got it together against the SEC and started to play better and better. And the power is legitimate. He's probably a corner outfielder. He impressed me in the Cape too,
man. So it follows right along with that.
I think he's probably, late first round. I've seen some talk to the White Sox, but the White Sox have always been anti-strikeout rate. So he doesn't quite fit there, but Twins like power. Let me see, where did I put him in my final mock draft? I had him late. There is some talk that he would consider going back to school to try to prove himself.
I think that wouldn't be a bad move for him.
I have him going to the Miami Marlins at pick 31 in my mock.
That would. Here's the thing with that. I think it's a great option for them. Obviously, the money would be interesting at that point. The problem is he has a lot of swing and miss, and that's the thing is the Marlins are not deterred by that whatsoever, right? We look at all the prospects
there.
Yeah. But at some point, you have to hedge that a little bit, right? All of your prospects are high risk, big power, big swing and miss type dudes, and you're just going to bring in another one. I mean, maybe it's one of those things where it's you throw five things of spaghetti on the wall, one of them's going to stick, but I don't know. I think it's almost insane to do that. It's going to be interesting to see where he goes, but also Chase Petty. Chase Petty's another guy, big power arm, So much effort, though, in that delivery, in my opinion.
And he's undersized.
Yeah, he throws 101, undersized. He's got 2+ pitches. You're basically drafting a reliever out of high school, which is like unheard of. So where does that all fall in? I see him as a guy that might fall and end up going to UF as well, but I don't know what his signability situation is. Where do you think Chase Petty goes?
So he is a common player linked to the Indians. And I mean, I've been guilty of it as well because he does fit when you look at, like, they drafted Daniel Espino, who's a very similar profile. Like, Daniel Espino is a guy who was also just taken off a lot of boards because more than likely he has, he's more than likely a reliever. 2 great plus pitches, but just has not been able to consistently put it together. And I'm sorry, I just had a brain shutdown moment. But, I think that when you look at that, the Indians were the hope, and you see that consistently mentioned. But they're just, the Indians are also the team that didn't send out a single college scout to a game in person until the College World Series. They've gone so heavily into the models. Last year's 2020 class was everything right now has been written about the 2016 class, which it's funny because all the talk about the 2016 class is fairly Bieber, Plesac, and Savali were all from that class. Everyone forgets Andrew Landtrip, who was actually the third arm, not Plesac, but injuries ended his career after 2 years, who was the other kind of player of that type. And everyone also forgets that's the Will Benson, Nolan Jones draft class too. That was their first 2 picks. Those type of players are exactly who they took. Michael McGreevy. I don't know if he's saying that's someone Cardinals took McGreevy.
Wow.
So, that was my pick. I had him going to the Indians. He was the highest player on my board. He has
Indians written all over him because he has that Shane Bieber type of profile.
Yes, and that's exactly what they did with Burns and Logan Allen. So I thought he made a ton of sense. It is funny because a year ago I had Jordan Walker, this is the Indians guy. This year I was Michael McGreevy as the Indians guy, and the Cardinals took both of them.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of following a similar mold, similar model there, and it might just work. It might just work. So now that makes things interesting as well. How far is Ty Madden going to fall? And also, before we answer that, Aram, are the Cubs going to be the team of the future because of that prospect that they have that went off today? So, by the way, that prospect they have that went off today is a guy that I've hitched my wagon to since for a year and a half now. And it's I think I'm known for that with every Locked On MLB Prospects listener. They're like, I can't tell you how many tweets I had at me after Brennan Davis went yard for the second time because I've been talking about him forever. That's one of my favorite prospects in baseball. And boom, he had a day today. I think he's for real. And there's Jeff's. Is that who we got there?
My daughter has popped in tennis.
Your daughter just went to her first baseball game yesterday. How was the baseball game? I don't know. She can't hear me, but ask her how was her first baseball game?
Wants to know how was your first baseball game?
Good.
Good. What was the best part?
Watching it.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. See, she could have said the food. She could have said the candy. She could have said the games, but she said watching it. She's a baseball fan in the making right there.
Yeah, there we go. So you go have a good rest. I'll see you later.
Little shout out there because she just went to her first game and it's Jeff's 40th birthday. So got to get a hug from the daughter there. But yeah, Brennan Davis, unbelievable today. I'm so excited. He's making me look good. But who are the Blue Jays going to pick at 19? I had Solamento.
I had Joe Mack because they're the king of bloodlines.
Joe Mack, the catcher?
Yes, because his brother is he a Mets guy? And then I also said Will Bednar if he's around because, again, they draft everyone who's related to someone. So I thought bloodlines. It was until I'm proven wrong. I mean, that's how I got the Alec Manaea pick right a few years ago. It was bloodlines. That's how I got the Jordan Groshans pick as my sleeper, bloodlines.
The Jays love the bloodlines. They drafted my dear friend. I was just visiting in South Bend, Griffin Conine, and he had his 3rd home run in a row today. His 9th home run in 13 games. And Sean, I know you're listening right now. That's what you guys get for trading my buddy. Thank you for sending him over to Miami. Jonathan VR, no longer with the Blue Jays. But, yeah, Griffin's been on a tear. But, yeah, another bloodline pick there, and they love it. So that's not a bad idea. But
they instead are going to take Gunnar Hoagland, who might have gone in the top 5 picks if he hadn't.
100%. pitchability with stuff. What else do you want? What else do you want? Pitchability with stuff.
Former first-round pick of the Pirates to go back. He just, I can't remember why he didn't sign, but he's always known for his control even then. And yeah, I mean, he goes, I don't know, like 14, 15 picks higher, even though he had Tommy John surgery. Now I'm just looking, I'm like, okay, so where are his bloodlines? He does not appear to have any, so it's a bit of a surprise there. But I mean, it's a great
Maybe
pick. I had him about that range.
Distant uncle, and it was enough for them. But
I had him ranked 19, and he went 19. So
I like the pick, though. I like it. I really do. Hoglund can throw. He can throw. And we're talking about the pitchability guys. Manoah, pitchability guy.
Mm-hmm.
Hoglund's got stuff, too. I don't know what his timeline is in terms of coming back from Tommy John, but this is as safe of a pick as you can make. This guy's going to be in the middle of their rotation in a few years, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think, I mean, we can't say that everyone comes back to say, I mean, we can't even say it's safe. There was that terrible story about a person who died due to complications of Tommy John like a month ago. It's crazy. Shout out to his family. I doubt that they're listening, but I mean, I'm never going to. I'm terrible with names, but I can see his face right now. That's bad, and that face is never going to leave my mind. But you expect that for the most part, a player is going to come back and be effective. And I saw someone calling it a risk reward pick. I don't see it that. I think he's a solid mid rotation starter and a very good chance at that.
Oh, I don't think it's a risk reward pick at all. I think it's literally the best player, or right around the best player available, and a safe upside pick. I just think it's the good pick. Like, that's all it is.
Yeah, I think it is. Like I said, he would have been. I had him like 8th or 9th in my first write up, and I moved him down because it's not a sure bet. There is some minor risk with it. So other than that, I mean, yeah, there's a few players I like more, but he was one of my 5 best available. And I had him, like I said, I had him 19th on my board. He went 19th. Right? Are they picking 19th? Yeah, they're picking 19th.
Yep,
Yankees 19th. Are 20th. Oh, so Chaos is getting excited.
What? Yeah, Chaos is all over this. So what is the pick that we think is the best case scenario here for the Yanks for Chaos?
For Chaos in particular. I mean, my highest rated player, I have Josh Baez. I did see earlier someone asked if the Indians could afford him. I think they could afford him. I don't think he's a huge money guy. Will Taylor, I guess, how do you feel about that if you're Chaos? Do you want them to draft the Clemson kid?
He's a Clemson fan. Yeah. Do you want him to go to campus? Or do you want to have a Clemson commit playing baseball for you?
So, yeah, it's
Pick
Baez,
your poison.
Chandler, Taylor. That's 3 guys. And then Max Muncy, Isaac Pacheco, and then Dylan Smith of Alabama is my 6th. So he wants Bubba. He wants him there. Ty Madden is my 7th best available. I know that's going to be one we could debate about, but yeah, I have Ty Madden at 7.
Yeah, could you see them going Ty Madden here?
I could. I mean, here's the thing about the Yankees. They don't always get called this, but I mean, they're one of the 5 most arch conservative teams when it comes to the draft.
And they're also terrible drafters. I will.
Yes,
I will stake my claim on that.
Well, I did a piece. Oh gosh, it's probably about 10 years old. But about 10 years ago, I took and I added up all the WAR values of everyone's draft classes over a 20-year period from 1990 to 2010. The worst team was the Reds, then the Cleveland Indians, and then a little gap in the New York Yankees.
I bet you they're the worst now.
Those 3 teams were significantly worse than everyone else.
I think the Yankees might take the cake now.
The Reds are pretty bad. I mean, they've gotten better of late, but yeah, they've been.
Think about the Yankees' recent draft. Like, who have they really hit on? I mean,
they're hoping Clark Schmidt. I mean, that's probably. I didn't love Holder when it happened. I thought that was an overdraft. Volpe was the guy that I actually mocked to them, even though they never draft high school guys because they like to draft local. Sigler was an interesting player, but I thought he was an overdraft at the time. Just
but he could throw with both arms.
I know.
Like, what? Why does that matter? Drafting of the Phillies. Yeah, the Phillies haven't been good either.
Pretty awful. Second round is a complete. I mean, the Phillies second round. Don't go look that up. That's NC-17.
They just punt. Every time.
Well, they don't. It's like guys like Kyle Gowdy who was a real respected guy.
They went Trey Sweeney. They went Trey Sweeney.
Did I? I didn't mock him there.
Okay, so Chaos is not happy. Can you explain why that's actually not a bad pick? Because I had him going. I had Trey Sweeney going to talk you off the ledge.
That's my mock.
Really?
I got that pick right. I got Trey Sweeney right.
Boom.
That's in my mock. You can
I had him 24. Right, I had him 24 to the Braves. So he's not a well-known name. Trey, I mean, he's a mid-major guy. East Illinois? What was it? East Illinois?
Yeah, Eastern Illinois.
Yeah.
Illinois. I always say that wrong.
Offensive explosion this year. And the guy can hit. I think he's a high floor option there. I think the Yankees want to make sure they get something going here. But I think he can climb through the minor leagues pretty quickly. He's intriguing. I don't think there's anything wrong with this pick.
So the reason he's 43 on my board, I got it right in my mock, I don't like leg movement in swings. He's got a pretty pronounced step. And he's not going to stick it short. He's a third baseman. He's got some really nice exit velocity on top of high level production in a small program. So you're betting on the bat. I don't like steps and swings. It's one of those timing things that throws me off. And I'm sure you can come and give me the examples of of good players who do that, but I don't like moving parts and swings. It's just a personal bias.
I agree. I do agree with that. And I know he's not playing against the greatest competition in the world, but I think it has to be somewhat of a worthwhile hedge that he walked 46 times and only struck out 24. Right? This guy puts the bat on the ball. Whether that movement at the late in the swing will handicap his ability to tap into consistent power, that maybe that's the case. But he had 14 jacks in 48 games. He slashed 382, 522, 712, 6'4", 200 pounds, probably room for even more muscle. He could turn into just a big physical corner infielder slugger type, which I think would not be a bad outcome for the Yankees, right? To get a guy that can anchor the hot corner there for him for the future. I mean, Gio Urshela is not getting any younger. That kind of fits the timeline, right?
See, what was I had a scout message me about him the other day, just what did you think? And I'm like, he goes, I don't love the swing mechanics, but his ability to get hard contact, I think he will be at least an above average hitter.
So we got Scotty Bentley ready to go, the new host of the Locked On Tigers podcast. So this is my first introduction to you, Scotty. So first and foremost, welcome to the Locked On Network. Been here for a little bit now, but it's awesome to have you aboard. I've seen nothing but good things about what you're doing over there. And busy day, big draft day. I'm sure you were surprised by the Jackson Jobe selection.
Yeah, surprise is an understatement. Yeah. So it's really interesting because for the last few weeks we had kind of been told that the organization was really warming up to House and that we have had ties with Jobe for a while, and that the organization was blown away by the in-person workouts and stuff.
I saw those reports too.
Yeah. And even though they were blown away by Jobe and they were starting to warm up on House a lot, we were told, and we've been told, that if Mayer is there at 3, nothing matters. It's going to be Mayer. And then he was there at 3, and then it did matter because we ended up taking Jobe. So that was, I think, the biggest curveball of everything, was that we were told if he was there, if Mayer's there at 3 and doesn't get taken by Pittsburgh, that he was going to be a Detroit Tiger. And then we even had a reporter say that he was the pick, while we were on the clock, and we all were in that boat. And then mayhem happened. So
mayhem puts it lightly. I was losing my mind through the first 10, but Jobe is really interesting. I'm a big fan of his. There's some questions that Jeff has. I think that he has as much upside as any arm in this draft. Clearly the Tigers agree. They probably saved some money with that pick. And now there's some targets that they can have that they may not have been able to attain earlier. We've had this question a few times now, but it's a little different for the Tigers. Well, what do you think now, Jeff, that the Tigers can do with some of their savings here? They went pitcher, so now they're probably going to go with the bat. What do you think they do here in that compensation area or in the early second?
Before I get to that, I'll just give us the jump that Jordan Wicks is going to the Cubs here. So we see that continued run on college arms.
Good safe pick.
It's one of those things where the thing we know now is that it's going to be hard for the Tigers to get a college arm. Like, we're seeing them go. We are seeing them kind of fly off the board here, all in kind of not necessarily a row, but a really consistent grouping of them. They get to kick things off on day 2. Now that things have been moved around, I was not ready for. I didn't realize that it's only round 1 tonight. That's an interesting change. Get very set in the old ways. But for the Tigers, if they want to, I'll say this: yes, like everyone else, like literally everyone I talked to was Mayers. They love Mayer. They love Mayer. They love Mayer. I did keep Job there in my mock because I was told he was the number 2. And they went with him. There'll be some savings. I'm just not high on prep arms. That's just me. Too big of a risk for me in most situations. I had him ranked 11th, but I still called him he's a better prep arm than anyone last year and probably the year before that. He's got a high ceiling, ridiculously high spin rates, really athletic. Could have been a second-round pick as a shortstop, honestly. I don't know if they'll view him as a two-way guy, but there's a chance you could let him do that in the minors. Coming around in round 2, last year when they got to reset things, they were able to get one of my favorite pick in last year's draft, Dylan Dingler, who has continued to play really well in the lower minors. One of those, he looked like a steal a year ago, and he's done everything to confirm that. So I kind of expect them to go around and see who fits that, who is like that, who is the player. There's going to be someone sitting, and I think that's just who they're going to take.
And I think the Tigers are in a spot here where it's best player available kind of, right? Because you're well-rounded. Sure. I was just at the Futures game. I got to talk about it every time because it's I just saw Riley Green. I saw Spencer Torkelson. Then on the pitching side, Tarek Skubal's finally made some strides at the big league level. Matt Manning's been a disappointment this year, but, he still has all the potential to be Matt Manning. Casey Mize has started to really settle in. So there's a lot of pieces there, and you can say it's kind of balanced across the board. There's not really a specific need, especially now that we've seen what Dingler's done behind the dish. Where do you think the Tigers need to go, or is it just blatantly best player available?
So my belief, honestly, I'm for the MLB specifically, I am very best player available really at all times. I am very with how rigorous the minor league system is and how long it takes some people to get through the system and such. I am of the belief that best player available trumps all, unless, entire organization need maybe, but especially you should never take someone in the draft based on a major league roster need. So I am very much best player available. And there's, as we're seeing, this draft is absurd. Especially the top.
There's no word
top
other than
15 were insanity. So there's going to be some names there that you did not expect to be there, and there are some names there that could be there that at one point were pretty highly regarded. A lot of people here are talking about Fabian because of how highly regarded he was coming into the season, but then turns out he swings and misses at 30% of pitches and whatever. So he has his lumps as well. But yeah, Fabian is a really big one. Personally, Schwellenbach, just because I think that would be super cool. I'm really big out of him out of Nebraska. I think there is some names there. As far as pitcher versus bat, I can't imagine that they'll be too hung up on we need more bats, we need more pitching. Outside of those three that you named, the Manning, Skubal, and Mize, the pitching is really weak in the organization. At least there's a huge drop-off. And then batting-wise is honestly a pretty similar situation. It's super top-heavy. You have the Torkelsons and Greens, and then after that, there's a lot of people that could be good, but also people that could, flame out. There's a big drop off there. So I really think that they're just going to go like they did with 3. I'd imagine that they're just going to go whoever they think is their guy and best player available.
So they also pick at 32, right? And we don't know exactly what the Job bonus is. We know it's going to be almost guaranteed under slot.
It better be.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just kind of crazy. So
it's a ridiculous pick if it's not under slot.
And I like Job again, but they go under slot. you pick 32. You got a lot of money now to potentially go there. We were discussing Jayden Hill as a potential option, as a guy that you just go huge upside. Ty Madden, and could Ty Madden fall to 32, Jeff?
I mean, I think he could. I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility. We just had Jordan Wicks to the Cubs and Colson Montgomery to the White Sox, so we're up to the Indians, and he's still sitting there.
That would be. I mean, that's one there. I know you don't love him. There might be a little like Faedo risk in there, but Ty Madden's a guy you might have to just take at 32, right? You wouldn't even have to go over a slot, really. Then you could go crazy over slot, maybe in the third on a high school guy, or in the second, excuse me, on a high school guy or somebody else. I mean, what are your thoughts there? What's the best case scenario for you, Scotty? Are you kind of thinking they can get creative and go in a lot of different directions?
Well, I mean, I'll say I don't really trust the organization when it comes to them being creative. So I'm not sure that would be my first choice. But assuming that Job is under slot, the pick becomes considerably more logical. It makes a lot more sense if you can get him for, honestly, like a lot under slotted. It would make a lot more sense. So having the comp pick at 32 as well as 39, I believe, is
gives
definitely
you a lot of money, a lot of financial flexibility.
A lot of flexibility to really do a lot. And I think my hope is, I kind of listed like individual players that I'm keeping an eye on, but my hope is honestly, you took this big risk on this kid at 3, you sign him for under slot. If the next however many rounds, several, honestly, if the next several rounds are you taking guys that have either fallen and you need to sign for slot or over slot, or like you said, like high schoolers that have fallen that aren't going to sign unless you go way over. If that's the next 3 or 4 rounds, the Joe picks makes a lot more sense to me, and it's a lot more justifiable, and I will be a lot more pleased with the night. And that's what I've just continue to try to tell people is if he signs for under slot, we don't know how bad of a pick is, because that's how baseball works.
And you got to cite Dylan Dingler too and say, look at what they did. And maybe they identify that guy in the next Dylan Dingler type. They have to over slot. So that kind of tees me up for Jeff real quick is they probably in the Tigers have the most financial flexibility of any team now because of their 2 comp picks, the money they presumably save at 3. We've floated a bunch of names, but this is a team that has next level savings potential here. What can you do with that next level ability to spend? Looking at your big board, looking at guys that are falling, looking at guys that may be perceived as not signable. What would you do if you're at the helm here for the Tigers in terms of getting the most value with a player that you can draft here at 32?
I mean, maybe one of those Clemson kids.
So you go
Chandler,
Bubba Chandler, or Will Taylor. I could see Will Taylor being a really good option for them there, and it's going to take a little bit of money to sign away a Clemson two sport guy, but yeah, that might be what they have in mind there. Who do you prefer on your big board, Taylor or Chandler? And then for Scotty to follow that up, because Chandler is a pitcher and a switch hitting outfielder, but is a bit more raw. Will Taylor has a lot of I would say a higher floor and a good ability to swing it, and just some good tools, and a 6-slot receiver. He can fly. So you can't really go wrong either way. What do you think, Jeff? And then I'd like to hear what Scotty's preference is.
I have Taylor 18 and Chandler 20, and I think a lot of it is just like Taylor, you're looking at a guy who was an all-state wrestling champion. I want to say he was a quarterback, actually, in high school and won a state championship there. I just look at a guy who, when he's only focused on baseball, what is he going to do? I mean, he's always had sports running long, and he's never really had that chance. I wouldn't even sleep on his power potential. A lot of people look at just the speed and the defense and think, oh, he could have average hit.
I think there's more
he's
twitch
a guy
there.
Who's growing. I think he's one of those players that you can absolutely look back in a few years and be like, yeah, we should have realized that there's more to him than we were originally anticipating.
And 18 on your big board, I mean, Scotty, that'd be a pretty good scenario there. You overslot and get what is, in Jeff's eyes, Jeff's pretty spot on so far and has been doing this for a while. That's almost middle first round value.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that assessment. I think that especially on when you took with the first pick, when you took someone that has such a wide range of outcomes, such a low floor but such a high ceiling, to take a little bit more of a safer, I think, like you said, if he can focus and ends up focusing just on baseball, the kind of talent that he is, like that's a guy that I think has a much higher floor, and that's why we liked Dingler last year, like you said earlier. That's why, I mean, that was a pick that people here were rejoicing on draft night because of that reason. So I think that really fits a similar bill.
I loved that pick as well, and that was a high floor guy, but look at the ceiling. You can't really see that either. So
Right.
that's the thing, is you find the right guy, and Taylor, as Jeff alludes to, could be that guy where, high floor, but that ceiling could be way higher than a lot of people think. And you're going to have a fun night tonight, right? Because they're going to have 2 more selections, right? With 39 would still be tonight as well, correct? So you got 3 picks today?
I think so. I think 39 is going to be
2.
like 39. We're going to be one of the first picks tomorrow, but 32 I still have tonight.
So you got a lot of fun. You got 32, and then you got one of the first picks tomorrow, and then another pick tomorrow. So a lot of fun ahead. I'm sure we'll be talking to you more, and with all the picks coming forward here. And I got some faith in the Tigers. I don't know about you, but I think the Tigers fans should have some trust after last year's draft. Last
year's draft was phenomenal.
Utilize these second, third rounds in the comp picks and do something cool. So looking forward to seeing your thoughts as those picks come across, and it should be fun for Tigers fans here as they continue to load up that system and get closer to competing, and a lot of talent that they could potentially pick up here if they do it right.
Yeah, that's the hope. That's the hope, is to it's just the fan base is very the patience is running out, right? It's been 5-6 years now.
I get it.
We're starting to see some kids make the majors. We got, we saw the Futures game today. Hopefully those 2 are up next year as well. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel for sure.
And Badu's been a great story as well. So a good draft here, and I think Tigers fans have a lot to be excited about. So again, they should also be excited about the fact that they have a new host for Locked On Tigers. Welcome to the network again. I know you've been here for a little bit, but had to give you the welcome as well to one of our newest guys. And excited to have you aboard, and excited to talk to you as the prospect guy. I'll always be happy to talk some Tigers prospects with you, and look forward to reconnecting in the future. But thanks for taking the time, and good luck the rest of the way to the Tigers on this eventful draft.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Take care, Scotty. All right. So this is where I hand the reins over to you, Jeff. And I know you've got some good guests coming on. This was a blast. I really am glad we did this. And it was one of those things that you don't know how it's going to shake out. I had confidence in us because we've done shows before and they go well. But this whole restreaming thing, it's sick. But I didn't know how this was going to work. This was cool. I'm getting texts from so many people saying that they were enjoying this. And your insight was invaluable. Everybody stick along, because the further we get into this draft here, the less is going to be known on a lot of these guys, unless you're Jeff. And Jeff has all the knowledge here, and you're bringing on some good guests. So replace me with some more knowledge as well. And I'm excited to see how this shakes out the rest of the way. And you'll be getting texts from me because I'm going to have some questions for you. But this was a ton of fun, Jeff, and it was an honor to be able to share these 3 hours with you on draft night. This has by far been the most fun I've ever had on draft night, and I haven't even been able to watch any of it.
No, thanks for coming. I'm glad we got to this. I had an absolute blast. It's much better than last year, where I'm trying to navigate all of this myself and just talking to myself. So thank you for being up for this. I know it's crazy because you're at the Futures game and doing all of that fun stuff in addition to this. So I appreciate you making the time and being able to stay awake.
Oh, yeah. I 3 hours of sleep last night after getting from South Bend, but I'm wired after this draft. So it was a blast. And again, your knowledge is invaluable. And it was a blast to be able to do this with somebody like you. So everybody that's on here, stick along with Jeff, because I'm going to need to refer to Jeff as we get deeper into this draft as well. But take care. Thank you, everybody, for sharing the draft with us, and stay on to hang out with Jeff and some awesome guests that he has on the way.
So right now we are up to the Indians pick. I'll just do a quick reset and lock up one of my guests. Unfortunately, just the big one. I was hoping to have my good friend Brian Sikowski over from Perfect Game on. He is unable to due to a rain situation in the game that he is attending. So we're just going to kind of re-rack and go and talk about picks as they occur, answer some questions in the chat, and keep going. So yeah, make sure to be active in chat. That'll help me out as I'm kind of soloing it for the next little bit. But Jordan Wicks to the Cubs. I was lower on Wicks. Briefly had mentioned, so players who have the best changeups in baseball have those high-end changeups, typically have greater velocity, and he doesn't have that. Now, a lot of the players who have great changeups in the draft, if you go through the history, recent history of the draft at least, players who have the top changeup in the college ranks often haven't found success in the majors, and that's because there isn't enough separation between those two pitches. And with Wicks, I always push against this idea that low floor guys are safe, or I always get this backwards. That this like low ceiling, high floor is safe, because when you're very close to being a below major league talent, when you're very small margins, when those margins get affected, then that player is no longer a major league talent. So I'm not a big Wicks guy. The Indians take Will Taylor. Is that why someone's getting very excited in here? I am currently behind. If it is, he is a fantastic pick. But yeah, no, that's why Wicks was never my guy. I had him ranked 30. He is not the player that I was hoping for. Let's see. Now I've got so Colson Montgomery, the White Sox. White Sox take their first high school player in the first round since 2012 when they drafted Courtney Hawkins. It has been that long. 2012. We have nearly a decade of taking college players. They built this team with college talent. New scouting director Mike Shirley came in last year. I told everyone I knew they were probably going to go prep. Everyone had them on prep. They loved Colson Montgomery. But I was going to, until they did it, I couldn't believe it. He's old. I'm old, but he's old for a high school kid. He turned 19 in February. That was never going to match him up with my models, just because that age is significantly at the high end of a high school kid. Shortstop, kind of in the Brady House, Wes Cath type of shortstop, where we know these guys are going to move to third. More of a power potential there. The White Sox were very high on him. And then, like I said, that brings us, if there's no question on them, that kind of brings us up to the Indians, which I am again hoping is a Will Taylor pick, because I would absolutely love it at this point in the draft. So Matt Thinker, you hopped in and said Taylor. Does that mean Will Taylor? Does it mean Jake Taylor? Who do we got here? I will continue to vamp for a moment here. So the Cubs and the White Sox, interesting from the Cubs' perspective, is they were last year, both teams had new scouting directors starting last year. The White Sox scouting director in his first full year goes completely against what has been the archetype for many years there. Cubs director, after taking Ed Howard last year, who was a high ceiling shortstop, went back to the old approach. The Cubs were just as conservative and model based as you could, and it was not successful for them. They had, Andrew Lang, Brandon Little, a lot of lefty. Well, Lang was a righty, but a lot of kind of safer pitcher. Like Andrew Lang is the safe pitcher. Guess what? He got traded to the Justin Wilson, I think, was the Tigers trade for him. He's not much of a prospect. It's kind of the danger of those safe picks. And they had not been successful. This year's pick of Wicks that's probably about the safest player you're going to read about. But again, I will push back against that whole idea of what is safe versus what is not safe. Cleveland takes Gavin Williams. Makes a lot of sense. So Gavin Williams, if you trust the medical, this is a fantastic pick. I had him ranked 22nd on my big board. I was high on him. Nope, I'm sorry. He was 25th on my big board. And he is a player out of East Carolina. If you watch the College World Series, he's one of the players who kind of came out and made himself a lot of, I don't know if he necessarily made himself money, but he definitely pushed himself up boards. He's been around. He was drafted out of high school back in 2017. So if you think about it now, we're 4 years later. I mean, he is essentially a senior-aged prospect, dealt with injuries. I'm just trying to look at my own profile on him. 6'6". He turned 22 in July. Again, because he's a senior, so he would have been young for his class. He's a young senior. He's still developing. He's a guy that the Cleveland Indians, kind of perfect, right? The Indians develop pitching well. They're getting a guy here who has dealt with injuries and he had just 68 innings over his first 3 years. So an interesting player, a guy who can grow. Favorite pick is Cleo Watson by far. Least favorite pick, like I like Frank Mazzucato. Like I'm the high man on Frank Mazzucato outside of the Kansas City Royals. So I hate to say like I don't like that pick. I like that pick. I just I like the player. I don't know if I like the pick, if that makes sense. I'm trying to think if there's any players as I just kind of scroll over here through the list. Like, is there a player that maybe is not a favorite? Is there anyone who was, Colson Montgomery is the only player so far drafted who wasn't in my top 30. I was significantly lower on him. So I was, it's either Montgomery as the only player who's not in my top 30, or it's Mazzucato as just the amount of overdraft that was. Cleo Watson, no one's going to compare to that. And I mean, my second most favorite pick is probably Henry Davis 1 because I didn't think it would happen, but I absolutely think he was worth it. Matt Thinker asked me about Petty. If you read my mock, I kind of address it in there, and I addressed it a few times. Petty was the old school thought. The Indians are going for a much different approach nowadays. Petty is too much of a risk for them, and he's undersized. He throws hard. Yes, there is some Daniel Espino-like characteristics to him, but they're moving away from that. They're moving more into the guys who have the control numbers, who have walk rates. I thought they're going to go college pitching here, and they ended up doing that. So he's definitely someone who they brought in who they're signing. His teammate Connor Norby also has a chance to go today. ECU could be a multi first round team. But yeah, for the Indians, Williams, I had him 25th. He goes 23. It makes sense. I know there's going to be people losing their mind because Ty Madden is still on the board, and that's who people like. Gavin Williams should be under slot. He is senior aged. Like at the end of the day, he is a senior player. I would bet him somewhere in the range of what Tanner Burns got a year ago. This should be an underslot signing. The Indians have $2.9 million here. I'd be surprised if he got over 2. I would think maybe more around 1.8, 1.9. So this should be an underslot savings for the Indians with this pick. I'm just typing right now that Gavin Williams is another player that fits the Indians mold. So as I talk about that, if we go and we pull up his stats on my third screen, go for the Baseball Cube. If you want college stats, I recommend Baseball Cube for this. And we go pull up the exact ones on Gavin Williams because I know a large percentage of my base being Locked On Indians is going to be Indians. But if anyone else has a question, please throw it in the chat. And we have 2 Gavin Williams. I'm going to assume the one from 2018 is the one we want, not the one from 2014. So this past year, walk rate under 3. I'm trying to remember. I made that because I was telling someone, it was my 3 a.m. conversation last night with a representative of the team. It's like, the Indians, I don't have anything. What are the Indians going to do? I was like, my exact words last night to that representative from our team, find a college pitcher with a walk rate under 3 and a strikeout rate over 10. Gavin Williams, 2.39 walk rate, strikeout rate of 14.39. So that I was right. Hopefully that representative will do the right thing and give me some good information later. But yeah, that is Gavin Williams. It just makes a lot of sense for the Cleveland Indians with that selection. Keep it going. Anyone left besides the Mad Thinker in chat? Throw me some questions. Help me out here. We have the Braves. Everyone and their mother mocked them. Spencer Schwallenbach, the former Indians draft pick, fun fact. He is a shortstop / right-handed pitcher, the best two-way talent, in my opinion, even more so than Bubba Chandler in this year's class. He barely pitched. First 2 years, he didn't pitch at all. Was only a reliever this year. So you're taking a leap of faith if you want to draft him as a starter. Most think he's probably a little bit better there, but I think he could go either point. If Gunnar Hoagland hadn't had Tommy John, just looking at this draft class, part of me wants to say he could have been 7 to the Royals with their focus on pitching and the type of pitcher he is. I think he could have locked in there. Possibly 9 to the Angels. I would say those are the 2 most likely landing spots for him. I honestly think you could have made a case for Gunnar Hoagland being higher than Kumar Rocker if he's not hurt. Like that is not a crazy statement. I know he's the bigger name, but I think there's the possibility that Hoagland could have been the higher rated player just because he's got a really strong mix of pitches, more advanced secondary offerings. There aren't as many concerns with the delivery, which is, its own set of humor as his own set of humor as it was Hoagland who got hurt. We have Ethan Smith coming back in from Locked On Pirates, just going to help me out as
why not?
I appreciate it, Ethan. It's I did this last year solo, but it's trying to multitask. So I thank you for jumping in here real quick and continuing so we can talk and chat away. It's been a while since the first overall pick. We've seen a lot of players come and go off the board. If I do a quick reset of my big board, top 5 available by my book are Will Taylor, the outfielder. We have Bubba Chandler, the pitcher, Max Muncy, the shortstop, Isaac Pacheco, the third baseman, and Dylan Smith and Ty Madden are the next 2. Who are you hoping to get to the Pirates at this point in time? Nope. I'm not hearing you right now, Ethan.
Oh.
There we go.
Are we good? All right,
yes.
Cool. Weird. Yes. Interesting. I don't know. I guess I was trying to do the headphone thing. It didn't want to happen. Either way, what I was going to say was the Will Bednar experiment is dead. Thought it was going to happen. I guess it didn't. So Ben Kaspick of Locked On Giants will give you Adam Frazier for Will Bednar. Throw that out there. As far as the undrafted guys right now, I mean, obviously it would be a pipe dream to see Ty Madden drop to 37. I don't think he will, but I mean, it would be a pipe dream if it did happen. Ethan Wilson, he really intrigues me. He's a left-handed outfielding bat, especially in PNC Park, 81 games a year. Any left-handing bat that can hit the ball over the fence is going to be good. So there's a good amount of guys, but I don't think I can really give like a firm answer until we go all the way through to pick 36.
Yeah, we just had another arm go off the board, but it was not them. It was not Madden. It was Ryan Cusick, the Wake Forest pitcher. Apparently the Braves are collecting all of the Wake Forest pitchers in this year's class, but it's the nice thing to a degree with this draft class is he's off the board. I know I'm a high man on Dylan Smith out of Alabama. I can deal with that. But Ty Madden being a big name still left. Spencer Schwallenbach is kind of a first round name as well. Jayden Hill. I'm just kind of going through my big board shouting names right now. But those are still a lot of pitchers. Michalewski from Fordham. Still those guys who could end up getting to the Tigers if that's what they want to do.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing that I love about the MLB draft, as you guys mentioned earlier when I was in here for the first overall pick, is just how teams really, in this first round, some teams like the Pirates decide to go underslot because they know that they can get these better players later. Hot take-wise, I could really say this, Henry Davis might not even end up being the best player from this draft and the guy that the Pirates talk about for the next couple years. He's a really good player, don't get me wrong, but what happens if this guy we take at 37 was supposed to be a top 15 pick, but because we went underslot there, we get him too? That's how a lot of these teams seem to be doing with it. But I agree with you 100%. The Khalil Watson pick, steal of the draft easily so far. I don't think there's been anything else that's like really cemented to it yet.
I can't even think of anything even remotely in that everyone else has been kind of in that range. Yeah, that's I think what makes that so interesting to me. It's just one of those picks where I look at it and they are the talent level relative to where they got him is just such a slam dunk.
And I mean, it was crazy too to see even like Kumar Rocker. I think most people expected it, but him dropping as far as he did too to New York was very interesting. I don't know how that'll end up going for him, but we'll see.
No, they, I understand on a very basic level. It's like there are some people who don't love the delivery. There's some people who kind of view like what he is now as a finished product. He's not going to add more. So they view him more as like a mid to back end guy. But I mean, I still viewed him as a real, even if he's a mid rotation starter, most teams would kill for a mid rotation starter, even in the top 10 picks. That's still a fantastic value. So and good on the Mets. They were able, while to the outside world, the Mets won the draft, right? Because Kumar Rocker went to the Mets. I think those who follow it in depth know that it's the Marlins who are going to be the real winners.
Yeah.
But again, I think we'll see that the Mets are the team that get the most hype.
Yeah, I also saw this funny tweet already. It's like the Rays already have a stacked farm system. They're going to get Ty Madden now, aren't they? It was like, oh my God. Yeah, let's just build up one of the better farm systems in baseball with yet another pitcher. Throw it in there for them, right? Just like give them all the pitchers. That way they can make more trades with my Pirates and like fleece us for our really good players and trade us some prospects. Let's flip the script on them, guys.
With this Pirates team, though, I was kind of disappointed, I got to say. I was really hoping with all of these players and potential trades, and they made so many that they didn't add more draft picks. When you already have the draft capital in a deep class, do you think they even tried? Do you think, I mean, every year I try to sit back and say teams should trade for those draft picks, and we just don't see a lot of those deals. They happen very intermittently. Do you think it's a matter of teams not being willing to trade, or do you think it's a matter of teams just not putting a ton of value on those picks?
It could be a mix of the two, but we have to remind ourselves that this draft this year is also like, one, it's later than it normally has been, but it's also going back to the original format. If we remember last year with COVID and everything, we only got the 5-round draft. And I think that changed a lot of how teams were viewing the draft this year, because realistically, you got more time to look at guys. You also had the MLB Draft Combine this year. So on both sides of the coin, I see like how it could be relatively the same. But also you think having a combine would actually be very interesting, because you get to see these players even more that, you might want to value those picks more. So maybe next year you see it when it comes through a little bit more. The Pirates, I think it's more of a thing of where, they value the draft picks, but I think Ben Cherington trusts himself enough to work with what he has. For other teams, I can't really speak for other teams, but I would say maybe next year, especially new CBA, all that wonky stuff, you'll probably see some stuff change with how teams definitely trade for those picks. I also like how you said the other Max Muncy.
That's the funny thing too. Like if I go back to like my way too early mock draft, I don't think I still have it open. I mocked him to a team just as like a joke. And I'm like, I know he's not really a top 30 guy. And the A's just drafted him, side note, 25th overall. I had him, like I said, he's amongst I think I had him 21st on my big board. What a rise for him. And also just what about the great humor, Max Muncy to the A's again.
Yeah. So let's see. Hopefully this one works out for him this time, honestly.
That's hilarious. I feel like the A's are just trolling us now.
Yeah, they were like, you know what? We're a good team. We're probably not going to be in Oakland for much longer anyway. So let's just take a guy we've taken before. They're like, they're going to find some fine print saying, actually, Max Muncy from the Dodgers is this pick, because they're going to say they didn't specify where Max Muncy came from. So then Max Muncy has to go to Oakland, and then they have to figure out who do they play at first base, Max Muncy or Matt Chapman, or not Matt Chapman, Matt Olson.
Like I say, for me, it's just like I said, he fits, he works and everything else, but it's just it's like a few years ago when the Marlins in day 3 drafted Keegan Fish. I was like, okay, and he was a kid from Ohio. So I knew, and I actually knew his agent, I'll be honest. So I knew more about him than I typically would, but it's like, you're just trolling us when you draft Keegan Fish and you're the Marlins. It's just, that's the truth of the matter when you get to one of those picks. But yeah, So inside the other Max Muncy, can we start? The Indians have 2 Logan Allens.
Right.
They drafted. So I've been pushing for the idea of Logan Allen the younger. Can this be Max Muncy the younger? And we have Max Muncy the older. Go back to like the ancient Roman times when how we did this. But yeah, it's humorous that we in back-to-back years we had the Indians double up on Logan Allens, and now we have the A's doubling up on Max Muncy's. Maybe this is the new market inefficiency.
Well, then here's the deal too. What happens if Max Muncy becomes like tired of the Dodgers for some reason, and then they trade with the Oakland Athletics and they trade Max Muncy for Max Muncy? How does Jeff Passan do that one? Like there you go. Be fun, right?
We have another pick coming in right here. Chase Petty to the Twins. That is an interesting selection, as the Twins have not drafted many arms over the past few years. They've kind of avoided them, and he's a big risky pick. He's not there. He's undersized. He's got wonky mechanics. Really throws it hard, and I get it to a degree. Like the Twins are another team that they like power arms, power hitters, but I their front office is partially from the Indians, partially from the Rangers. There was a time where Chase Petty fit the Indians mold, so instead he is now going to the Twins, which has some leftover people from the Cleveland days.
So it rounds out now. It's the Padres, the Rays, and the Dodgers. So
yes,
definitely in the mold right now to do some good stuff. We'll see what they do.
There are those 3, and the Padres have been linked. Excuse me. That's what I get for talking so much. Sorry to anyone listening. So I don't think anyone really expected Chase Petty to go in over like Anthony Solometo. He is still sitting there for the Padres. But we have seen a lot more prep arms this year than we have the past few years.
Yeah, and earlier too. I mean, Jayden Hill's even still there. I know he's not a prep arm, but again, as you mentioned earlier, like without injuries, he'd probably be off the board already. It's the old adage of like even in other drafts and other sports, you see it, a guy gets hurt, he doesn't get drafted until late first, early second round. He turns out being better than some of the guys ahead of him.
And we've we already had the one hurt arm, and we'll have to see what happens with Jayden Hill. He's the wild card. Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, if I'm the Pirates, I'd enjoy it. Honestly, I'm for it. Oh Lord, I already see who's in our little queue right now as his team is about to pick up. He's happy Aram's not here anymore. Get ready, guys.
I know it's Logan S. Allen and Logan T. Allen, but I really want to push. Javi's coming in. I just saw in the chat someone I know everyone calls him Logan T. Allen, whose debut got rained out tonight in AA, who was the Indian second round pick a year ago. But I'm still bringing in. I'm pushing the Logan Allen the younger and Logan Allen the elder. I'm still going to keep pushing that. That's going to be my own thing. If you go look at my mock today, I even wrote it that way. I'm refusing. I will not give in. I'm going to do my.
Can we also just talk about how some of these names in this draft are absolutely elite?
I think Itchy Burtz might still be in this draft. I don't think he has been drafted yet. Itchy Burtz might be my favorite name out of Texas A&M Corpus Christi.
Yeah. Bubba Chandler, another guy.
Yeah.
These are great. I love these names.
I mean, one of the best ever is Handsome Monica. That's always going to stand out as one of those top tier ones. The Braves 2 years ago drafted Jake Taylor. That made Indians fans happy. We are bringing in Javi. Oh, I don't even have to. Hey, so we're waiting here. Who do you want? Who is your hope right now with
Man, I want someone who could just has high upside. That is the most basic casual thing ever. But look, I'm going to be full disclosure. I'm not the biggest prospect guy in the world,
We can throw 2 names at you here. There's Will Taylor, who is a outfielder who is committed to Clemson to play wide receiver and to play baseball. And then we have Bubba Chandler, who's also committed to Clemson, who's committed as a quarterback in football and a baseball player.
I heard about Chandler.
We got a pair of two sport athletes. And then we have Anthony Solometo, who some people have compared it to a poor man's Mackenzie Gore. from New Jersey. So that's
okay.
Put it in your terms for you.
Yeah, I mean, Mackenzie Gore isn't exactly having the greatest time right now, so maybe that's not the name to throw out. But
I got faith in Gore.
I will say it is funny about the MLB draft is that this is kind of the future, but as far as infield goes, it's kind of set. Like, I can't really see too much of a change there. I mean, obviously with Machado, Tatis, Cronenworth now being who he is, and then I guess Hosmer for better or worse, but usually worse. So he's locked up for a while. So that's not exactly an area I think the team would be looking to improve. And their farm system is also good anyway. That's the other thing on top of that. Like, it's a very much like all right, whatever happens, man. Like, I know I use that phrase a lot, but that's just kind of my vibe. And in general, go ahead.
Well, here's who I want. Okay. I want them to take Spencer Schwallenbach and keep him a two-way guy.
Okay.
Keep him a shortstop and a pitcher. That's I think like they're a team who might be willing to do that and then have their own two-way guy.
I mean, the last guy we had that was a shortstop / pitcher was Jake. So maybe, history repeats itself a little bit. Someone can be as effective as him. Maybe he'll be the pitcher now. I will say that, like, just in general, my thing about drafting is that I'm always, ever since like the past couple of years, I've become one of those people who just I can't get too committed anymore. I think out of all the things in sports, it's drafting and the predicting young kids, essentially, especially in baseball, that I'm out on it. Like, I'm cool with it. I'll be happy. I trust Preller. But in general, my thing is like, I don't know, man. I don't have a crystal ball. And I keep seeing that things just, go up and down all of a sudden. Mackenzie Gore was a top prospect, and now he's fallen so back over the course of what? Like 2 months, basically. It was like such a fall for my guy, and for good reason, by the way. I'm not gonna bash everybody that ranked him lower, but it's just kind of, I don't know. I'm at peace when it comes to drafting. Like, my thing is the Pirates have shown that they're doing well. They've hit on a lot of their draft picks. It's not like they've been the Yankees or it seems like that, where they just have missed 10 years in a row. It feels like for the Yankees. So aside from like Severino. So it's been a while. So I just trust the Padres to develop somebody, and they're a team that already has a bunch of prospects with Abrams, who unfortunately is out for the year, which is really bad, unfortunately. But then you've also got Gore. You've also got Campuzano, who I love. And then you've got Robert Hassel. So my thing is whatever happens, man.
Well, like to bring this all around, like we got Padres, we got Pirates. Like, you look at their trade with the Pirates, and then you look at their trade with Tampa. Like, one thing they did is they took those high ceiling guys in rounds 1, 2, and 3. And even though they hadn't necessarily established themselves or even moved up, the Cole Wilcox, and I'm blanking on the outfielder to the putt. Yeah, I was thinking Head. I'm like, it's not Head. I knew it was an H name, but maybe they go that to here. Maybe they intentionally draft another high ceiling player, or, just a value player like they did with Wilcox, who was a pretty high ceiling guy, honestly, as a college guy. And that just becomes their next trade asset this offseason. Maybe they keep looking at that as a renewable trade resource.
Yeah, this might be one of those things where they just, as someone asked the question, the Padres feel like a team that could start dipping into its prospects pool to make big league deals. Could that affect where they go with this pick at all? Yeah, sure. I mean, this one, because it's going to be, this is a new draft, so that might be a little bit different now. But yeah, I think that in general with the Padres, that's kind of the vibe with the team right now. Everyone's just used to Preller going crazy and just making some big move. And that's fair. I mean, he's done it for basically every either offseason or trade deadline. So it wouldn't shock me with anything they do. I have a feeling, and this is always what happens in trade deadlines in any sport, that there's going to be a name that comes up that we haven't been talking about that just becomes available suddenly. That kind of happened a little bit with Mike Clevenger last year, actually. I don't think there was any vibes that he was being traded. And then all of a sudden it just kind of ramped up a little bit. I could be wrong because you are the Indians guy, but
it had been in the discussion because we knew they wanted to sell high. It wasn't necessarily, it did move pretty quickly from, hey, this could happen to he's gone. And they did move him. You look at Francisco Lindor, that trade situation was not the ideal, but you look at even someone like Jose Ramirez, they typically hold on to them a bit more than when they traded Clevenger. That was a little bit of a surprise just in terms of speed.
Yeah, and it happens. It happens. Max Muncy dialed in Oakland the first time. Now it'll work again. Yeah, that was weird. I had no idea there was a Max Muncy in this draft until I started following the coverage. That's funny.
I joked about him in the offseason, and then he kept elevating. I was writing up his profile, and then I had to go back in and shove him up to, like, I think put him 20th or 21st. He's twitchy. He's the fourth best shortstop in this class after Cleo Watson. He is a little less twitchy than Cleo Watson, but there are some similarities between Watson and Muncy. And then, just a Indians tale on it. Max Muncy, drafted by the Indians out of high school, did not sign him, of course, before he went away.
I like that pick.
Oh, what happened? Did they make their pick?
Jackson Merrill.
Jackson, that's an interesting one. The shortstop.
Ooh,
another shortstop. They said,
this is why I don't trust all the people say they know who the Padres are picking.
So I didn't have him in my top 50.
Okay.
He is athletic, as I recall. Mm-hmm. He was a guy. This could be. I mean, I did not think. I mean, there's always the disconnect where sometimes there's guys you're just not in on, and I was not really in on him. Mm-hmm. He's one of those kind of late pop-up guys from, I want to say, like, Maryland. Yes, Maryland, where there's this like, oh, okay, this guy's grown into, he's like 6'3", 6'4". He's grown into his frame. He's doing more. He was just a late talk guy. He's one of those guys that you could compare with, like, you could kind of group him with, like, the Wes Kath and the Colson Montgomerys as, like, he's a shortstop, but he's bigger. Maybe he goes to third.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so he's like a shortstop developmental almost. Yeah,
I felt like that. I felt like he's gonna.
MLB has him ranked. MLB.com had him the 79th ranked prospect.
Yeah, he didn't make my top 50. I don't know if this is
interesting.
Could be under slot. So I did it. He's one of those guys like James Tarantos, who's another, like, shortstop who's mentioned with Merrill, who a lot of people really liked, and a lot of other people were like, eh. So I don't know. Perception on him universally across the board.
So I have two things. First of all, just this is the lowest the Padres have drafted in the draft since '97. Just speaking again to how weird this is, like, to not care almost as a Padres fan right now. And on top of that, having a farm system and the established roster, like I mentioned before. But also, like, I'm wondering, is there a team that needs a shortstop prospect like Jackson Merrill that could potentially be trading guys at the deadline? So, like, do the Rangers, is it possible? Now I'm just getting real heady. I'm asking you the crazy questions now. You see this, Jeff? I'm here. So I'm wondering, say the Rangers and Joey Gallo. Are the Rangers a team that really want a shortstop prospect?
So I can get real close.
Yeah,
he can't be traded until this offseason. So
okay.
They can do a player to be named later, which is what
I already told, or I almost wanted to subtweet Ben of Locked On Giants, trade us Will Bednar and give me the Bednar brothers in Pittsburgh for Adam Frazier. But as you mentioned, it can't happen. Fun story, by the way, from earlier. You brought up Louis Campusano, and I believe I've told Javi this. I don't know if I've told you this, though. I actually used to play travel baseball with him, like when we were like around 10 to 13 years old. And now he turned into a ridiculous catcher in the major league level, and he's really good. And I'm covering baseball, so maybe one of these days I'll end up getting to interview him.
Okay, I have to interrupt everyone because this is the tweet that wins baseball tonight from Devin Fink about Max Muncy. Born 8/25/1990, drafted by the A's in 2012. Born 8/25/02, drafted by the A's in 2021. They have the same birthday.
Yep.
How about that?
Exact same birthday. Yep.
How about that?
I think it's actually interesting too. I might be wrong on this, but I think their frame is, like, very similar to, like, if I'm not mistaken. Like, I'm not entirely sure, but I thought I heard that somewhere too, that, like, they're almost the same height and the same weight.
Max. Yeah, I think that's about right because Max Muncy is like 6'1", 6'2". We have the Rays pick coming up. I'm not sure if we're gonna have I think we're gonna have the Locked On Rays guys maybe coming in, so I might have to say goodbye for a bit, Javi.
I will be. My last words will be, go Padres. I know they had a bad game today, but whatever. Daniel Cabrera made my week, so I don't really care. To be perfectly honest with you, I would like if they could beat the Rockies a little bit more consistently. I don't know why they're the kryptonite of the team this year. I think they're 6-6 or 6-7 against them this year. So that's very odd. But I will say, on my point about the trade, maybe could this be a sign Abrams could be in a deal in some way, especially because he did just get hurt. So maybe they're going to be more inclined to trade him. Granted, I imagine that being hurt means he'll be a little bit less in value. I don't know. I don't know much about drafting and prospects and all that, but definitely the bigger thing with the Padres right now is going to be the deadline. I'm looking forward to it. And congratulations on the pick, Ethan. I know this is a big night for you.
Henry Davis, baby.
Good luck, guys.
Fantastic selection.
Than I was, honestly. I was going to say, I think you were happier than I was.
I love him. I feel like he's, like I said, it's when you look at the total package, he is the guy who I thought was the number one player in this class. I do think it's interesting. I mean, technically speaking, I'm trying to look right now. I think Jackson Merrill. Oh, I'm sorry. We do not have the race, guys. We're just going to chat, though. We're going to go through pick 30 and then call it a night. I figure the draft is normally 30 picks. Makes sense to finish off, do 30. No Astros here, so not to kind of do their pick in abstention without them. Selecting, we'll get one extra pick from the Cincinnati Reds, who's our one competitive balance pick. It's the Trevor Bauer pick, as it were, in this year's class. I think
they're very hot right now.
They are. I was going through this. I think that Jackson Merrill is the first player selected who was not like an MLB top 50. And I think I was trying to go through and look. Chase Petty and Jackson Merrill here back to back, I believe, are the only players not from my top 50 selected so far in this year's draft. So we're getting a little more off board here at the end with these selections, at least in terms of how I evaluate and judge talent, which, you know, it's one of those things where I'm a little bit centrally focused on my lists and views. But yeah, these are the two players who stick out. And we're going to see what the Rays do.
Yeah.
I had Matt Nelson in my mock to the Rays. He is still on the board, or Mateo Nelson, if you prefer. Florida State catcher, senior, signed the same way that Gavin Williams was. Had a lot of home runs. I think he led the nation in home runs this year. Makes him a player to look out for, as he could potentially be a slot savings with them having a pick coming up in the 30s, and also just having Carson Williams. Okay. So Carson Williams is the pick. I was told earlier in the year he would go in the first round. I did not know where to put him. Torrey Pines High School, another shortstop, another prep shortstop. I had him in the 40s. I think other people had him lower. I said multiple times in mocks, the industry is very high on Carson Williams. Mm-hmm. They really, really like him. I was told he could be in play as high as the Angels, that they were hoping he would get to them in round 2. Wow. And realized it wasn't going to happen. There were a lot of teams hoping that he would slide. He makes a ton of sense to the Rays. Mm-hmm. They love to collect middle infielders. Let's see, my big board statement on him. Let me just dig around until I can pull that up. Okay, so there he is. I had him at 48. He's a legit two-way prospect, so he also has the big arm. He's very long. No standout tool, but scouts love him to death.
Yeah. I mean, based on your rankings, as you said, you said two guys outside of the top 50 that got drafted so far. As far as MLB.com, I don't know if you really – I don't know how big you are on MLB.com.
Callis and Mayo are fantastic at what they do. It's a lot to do for two people, so they also rely a lot on who they talk to and kind of a perspective view, but I think they do a great job. I will never disparage those two dudes.
Because you guys are on the same page, though. They only have two guys outside of the top 50. Trey Sweeney was the other one for the Yankees. He was 55, and then Jackson Merrill was the second one.
Yeah, I think Merrill is going to go down as kind of the surprise. Yeah, he's going to be the guy that is like and it's not like Nick York was a year ago when Boston took Nick York. Where we're like, wait a second, like York was a third or fourth rounder. He was not viewed anywhere as a first rounder. Jackson Merrill had some run. It's a bit of a surprise, but it's not a shock. I think it's more surprising because we saw all these prep arms go, and we assumed San Diego would take them, especially because so many people throughout this process have been so high on Anthony Solometo. Now, I'll say I was lower. He's in the 30s for me, so we'll see where he goes. But, they again, Carson Williams is that guy where I talk to people. It's like he's potentially 55s across the board. If everything works out, that's, it's always a big if when I make a statement like that. But he's one of those players that I specifically pointed out as I was going through, like, the industry's higher on Williams than the league. Same thing with Tyler Black. I thought Tyler Black would be off the board by now. Maybe I thought there was a chance of it. A lot of people did. I think I ended up mocking him to Milwaukee in the second round. Maddox Bruns to the Dodgers. Undersized right-hander. They do like their undersized right-handers.
Just we need more pitching.
A little bit of JT Ginn flashbacks for me here with him. I could be wrong in that, but he's another one who did not. So now we're up to 3 who did not make my top 50. He's a lefty, I want to say, not a righty. Yeah, so I was pulling it up. 97 with his fastball.
Gotcha.
And had some problems with his command and control, much like JT Ginn. And then debate if he'll be a reliever or a starter. So, yeah, a lot of JT Ginn with that selection right there to the Dodgers. Interesting pick. They were mostly linked to college talent throughout this entire process. So they went against board. And then, we now have Chase Petty and Maddox Bruns going before Solometo, going before some of those bigger name. I guess Petty is a pretty big name, but Bruns I think he's a bit of a surprise here when you just look at who's on the board. My top players are still untouched. We still got Will Taylor, Bubba Chandler. He goes over Bubba Chandler. Again, that probably comes down to money. Let's be honest. We have Bubba Chandler, Isaac Pacheco, who, again, is a player that I'm higher on than the field, so that's not surprising. Dylan Smith, who I'm higher on than the field. So I've got some time here. Why do I love Dylan Smith? Dylan Smith is a player who excelled at Alabama, which is not a great program. He has not pitched for a very long time. And really good control and strikeout numbers, and a really just a good, quick arm and athlete. So someone's going to get a fantastic deal in him. And Ty Madden is still on the board.
Yeah, still there. I was just going to ask you, do you think there's a reason why he's still there?
So I had Ty Madden 24th on my board, and I kind of wanted to move him down. He had a lot of hard contact off of him. I think that's one of those things that stood out for me. Like, the Big 12 is the probably the fourth best conference for baseball, if we're being honest. And he got hit hard by a lot of guys who are not future major leaguers. And I think that affected his perception. He didn't miss a ton of bats. I mean, he missed a good amount. The command it went in and left. I think the fastball, I think for the velocity on it, it's not a plus pitch. It could be, but I think it's more of a 50-55. So I think that I noticed some Ty Madden being left is going to be the big surprise. He's not even my top college arm left. So, it's one of those things where I feel bad for him, but I feel good about my scouting report because I was the only person who was like, Ty Madden is not a top 20 player. And now it's clear that the other teams agree with me. I have not heard hide nor hair of injury. Maybe I'm wrong.
Who did you mock to the Pirates at 37, if I may ask?
So I think, let me pull it up. I don't know if I went to them. So if I was looking at the board there at 37, I keep forgetting about Josh Baez because he's so high on my board. I would actually go Baez to them. I didn't do pick 37, but I would have given them Baez because he's just, they've gone so high ceiling in the players they've acquired. And he is that high ceiling player, and I would have probably done Mazzucato, honestly, as my sleeper there. It would have been those two players would have been my two selections there, just because he's my top pitcher left, top prep arm. So I would have gone ceiling for both of those. Obviously, having no idea that Mazzucato was going to go to the Royals, that did not stand out as even a possibility for me. We'll get this Reds comp pick, and that's going to end it for tonight. I want to thank you for stepping in with me here at the end, Ethan, having a fun time chatting baseball. Remember, you can follow me at Jeff MLB Draft if you want to continue getting draft tidbits after this. Ethan, make sure to let them know where they can find you in case they want to get some more Pirates info.
Oh, yeah, you guys can follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan, or, of course, on Locked On Pirates on Twitter. Tomorrow's episode, of course, we're going to talk to Henry Davis pick. We're going to talk about who I think they could take with the pick 37, probably getting some help from Jeff on that before I record. And then what this all means. I mean, we still have half a month before the Pirates gut the roster and add more upside talent. So going to be a fun rest of the month. And then after that, honestly, I know a lot of people are probably going to start looking towards something else, but I will be covering the Pirates all the way through the last game of the year. So make sure you follow me. I talk about a bunch of other stuff too. So it's not just Pirates, but I talk all things baseball.
Yeah, it's always fun to get a chance to do these crossovers, get to know the rest of the hosts in a more than typing setting.
Yeah.
Still waiting on just getting the Reds. Now, for those who are wondering, the Reds have one of the biggest pools in this draft. The Reds are kind of a team that can really dictate the draft in a lot of regards. I think this pick's going to be Will Taylor. We'll see if I'm right or wrong. He's been linked to them multiple times. They have a lot of pick value and a chance to maybe add him here. Or Matt Michalewski from Fordham are kind of the names we've heard talked about. Matt McLain could be a little bit of a cheaper signing, so they might have saved some money already. But yeah, them having comp picks, again, this is what they get for having lost Trevor Bauer in free agency. This is their compensation selection for that.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to very soon find out what the Reds do with their second selection. Again, there are only 29 picks this year because the Houston Astros were penalized for their sign stealing. They got their, not even a slap on the wrist, more of a slap on the finger for what they did, because they still went out and signed the number one player in the international market, I believe, from last year. So they're still able to build.
Speaking of that, by the way, Shaylin Polanco will make his Pirates debut tomorrow. I'm very excited for that kid.
No, it's always just seeing if anyone's giving me some not great information. No, I was mostly people asking me for information. It's always the fun of the draft day. It's like your text are either someone asking you, "Hey, what can you tell me here?" or that very rarely is it someone volunteering info. But one of the things I did talk about to point out where some things we got right. My mock, I believe I got 4 selections right, which for a year that was a crazy mock, I will take that. I did not get the Indians pick right, but when I was talking to that representative from another team, I was correct. They picked a player with a walk rate under 3 and a strikeout rate over 9. The Sam Bachman is, one of our sponsors every day, almost on our podcast, is BetOnline.ag. I'll throw them some love. If you can bet on the first player to the majors over at BetOnline, maybe I'll email them that they should do that. Put money on Sam Bachman. I will say that right now. Give some lines and information. And then it's just going to be fun. This draft is so deep. I look at what's trending right now. What's happening? 2021 MLB Draft. Reds at Brewers. Ty Madden. I'm surprised that Ty Madden is trending. Like we're at a level where this is amazing. Like I said, I was there. I was watching the first time this went live. I was on the John Stashower show on national radio back in 2014 to talk about the draft because there was like 5 of us who did it. Yeah. And now Twitter is trending over a player that they know in college who has not been drafted yet. It's fun to see how this has evolved and changed. It is fun to see how we continue to do this. And I feel like, hopefully we will very quickly see this pick from the Reds. It is interesting that you go back to from before when the season began. You got Adrian Castillo, Jude Fabian, Ty Madden, all players that we thought would be top 10 players. If I go back to my way too early mock draft, those players are still sitting there. This might be the most chaotic draft we've had.
Yeah, I just saw that tweet as well. Ty Madden, Adrian Del Castillo, and Jude Fabian all didn't go in the first round. Who would have imagined writing that 5 years ago or 5 months ago?
And Jayden Hill as well. Like, honestly, my way too early mock, I had Kumar Rocker, Jude Fabian, then Jayden Hill 3, Jordan Lawler 4, Adrian Del Castillo 5, Matt McLain 6, Jonathan Cannon 7. So there's another one. We're talking in 7 picks. 4 of those 7 players haven't even been drafted yet. Jack Leiter 8, Andrew Painter 9, Brady House 10, Marcello Mayer 11, and then Alex Benelis from Louisville 12, Ethan Wilson 13, Colton Cowser 14. It's kind of funny because my pick for Colton Cowser to the Giants stayed the same for basically a year straight. It didn't happen, but that pick stayed the same. But it's almost half of the initial 14 selections I projected didn't go in the first round.
Also, say that the MLB draft doesn't matter. Skip Bayless took time away from watching the NBA Finals to let everyone know that Kumar Rocker dropping to the Mets at 10 was the biggest mistake the 9 teams in front of them could have made. So just remember, the MLB draft is not meaningless.
No, I saw apparently ESPN's draft content cut out. So if you're someone who's coming over from ESPN because their content went away, we're glad to have you. Jay Allen to the Reds. So not Will Taylor, but the other athletic outfielder who had some first round talk. Raw player, had some talk to the Phillies. Let's see. I had him in the 40s on my big board. Oh, you know what? When I went to my way too early, I closed the big board instead of the mock. My rundown on Jay Allen, Florida kid. It's more about the future and less about the now. Let's just put it that way for him. Doesn't necessarily present like plus run, obviously, but not necessarily plus power. The whole thing, though, is potential. He is a growth kid. Yeah. He has had a lot of talk. I mean, he could get the full slot here, so that's interesting. That they were a team that everyone thought would go under slot with one of these picks. Instead, they're kind of going full freight with each of these selections, which is, I mean, good for them. And Matt McLean and Jay Allen, that's a nice haul. I had Allen 47, 3-sport athlete, football, baseball, and he was a potential football walk-on, pure lotto ticket. Outside of Benny Montgomery, I'm not sure there's a player with a higher ceiling in the entire class. So there we go. At 30 picks, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you, Ethan, for pinch hitting here at the end.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
I'm going to keep typing and writing on Twitter. I'll be doing that the next 2 days. So you can go ahead if you want more information, catch me there. Thank you, everyone. We're going to call it a good night.